Chapter 11:21. How's the battle going? A girl in a tight white outfit suddenly appeared in Yuan Ku's camp outside Yuzhong City. Alessander was startled by the sudden voice. He turned his head and let out a long sigh of relief. Miss Ling Bolai, you're finally here. Yes, the girl who suddenly appeared was none other than Asuka's companion who had been captured by Jiyu Shenyuan, Ling Bolai, the pilot of New Era Evangelion Plane Zero. Unfortunately, your comrade, Miss Asuka, was ambushed by a despicable human and captured alive. She's still in limbo right now, Alessander said with a bitter expression. Asuka was ambushed by a human? Ling Bolai's cold face turned even colder. However, seeing that New Era Evangelion Plane 02 was still standing outside Yuzhong City's city walls, her expression softened a little. Ling Bolai knew that the New Era Evangelion plane and its pilot were one. If the pilot died, the New Era Evangelion Plane 0 would definitely return to the dimension. On the contrary, the New Era Evangelion Plane 0 was still standing there. At the very least, the pilot's life was guaranteed. Be more detailed. Ling Bolai's words were as cold as ever. Alessander was stunned for a moment before he understood what she meant. Although he was cursing Ling Bolai's unfriendly attitude, he quickly described the battle in detail. Only then did Ling Bolai notice that there was a large hole at the back of Evangelion Plane 02's neck. It seemed that Asuka had been dragged out from that hole. What an amazing opponent! A rare trace of seriousness appeared on Ling Bolai's face. Even without the protection of the AT field, the opponent was able to break through the double protection of the external armor and Adam's body in such a short time, and capture Asuka alive. This strength must be extremely terrifying. Miss Ling Bolai, please forgive me for being blunt, but if you want to make a move now is the best time. The human who sneak-attacked Miss Asuka is now fighting with the Erlang deity Yang Jian. There is no better time than now. Alessander tempted. Yang Jian. Ling Bolai frowned and pressed her wrist lightly. A cockpit appeared out of thin air and enveloped Ling Bolai's body. In the blink of an eye, she was inserted into the body of the New Era Evangelion Machine Zero, just like what had happened to Asuka. However, Ling Bolai did not try to take advantage of this opportunity to rescue Asuka like Alessander had bewitched her. Instead, she controlled Machine Zero to stay where it was. With the help of Machine Zero's high-tech image tracking system, the battle between Yang Jian and Jiyu Shenyuan appeared in front of her at close range. Yang Jian and Jiyu Shenyuan's battle had already reached an extreme level of intensity. The traces of the three-pointed double-edged blade and the Zhuxian sword could no longer be seen with the naked eye. Ling Bolai could only see countless afterimages interweaving with each other. Zero's observation system slowed down the battle by 1,000 times and found that the three-point, double-edged saber and the immortal vanquishing sword clashed 150 to 200 times every second, which was equivalent to a collision every 5,000ths of a second. Is the observation system faulty? Ling Bolai's first reaction was to immediately get Machine Zero to start the system review. She believed that Machine Zero's observation system had made a mistake for it to produce such data. However, no matter how many times Machine Zero reviewed it, the final result was the same. Start the data comparison system. Although she was still a little reluctant, Ling Bolai had no choice but to accept this result. She then started the data comparison system, wanting to see among all the data collected by New Era Evangelion, which swordbearers could match the data of this swordbearer before her. Comparing. There are 2 people with similar data. There are 3 people who exceed the data. According to the judgment, the most similar data is Zhetian Jendi, Kaijing Jendi, damn it. There's actually someone as difficult to deal with as Yi Qing back then. True Lord Erlang, who was caught up in the battle with Jiyu Shenyuan, could not help but curse. He did not know how many years it had been since he had experienced such a difficult battle. This battle reminded him of the battle with Zhetian Jendi more than 700 years ago. Back then, Zhetian Jendi had fearlessly charged into the heavenly court. Be it Neza, pagoda-bearing Heavenly King Li Jing, or the 4 Heavenly Kings, none of them were a match for Zhetian Jendi. The scene was similar to Sun Wukong wreaking havoc in the heavenly court. However, it was different from Sun Wukong wreaking havoc in the sky. At that time, Both Neza and pagoda-bearing heavenly king Li Jing had been secretly instructed by a certain shitstirrer to deliberately go easy on Sun Wukong. Of course, he had also gone easy on Sun Wukong, forcing old Lord Taishang to secretly throw out a Vajra ring to knock that crazy monkey unconscious. Only then did his clumsy acting come to an end. However, his battle with Zhe Tianzhendi was different. Not only did Yang Jian unleash his full strength, he even unleashed an extraordinary display in the end. However, he was still unable to stop the invincible Zhe Tianzhendi. After exchanging over 10,000 blows with Zhe Tianzhendi, Yang Jian, who had unleashed all of his trump cards, was still defeated by Zhe Tianzhendi in the end. The Heavenly Court's last shred of dignity was completely obliterated, forcing his scheming uncle, the Jade Emperor, to personally intervene. Only then did the Heavenly Court not be destroyed. At this moment, Yang Jian felt as if he had returned to the time when he battled Zhe Tianzhendi. However, his opponent had changed from a handsome middle-aged man to a beautiful young girl. Furthermore, this beautiful young girl looked to be only around 22 years old. Queen Wangshu, how powerful is this young mistress Jiyu Shen Yuan? Can you make a judgment? Looking at this intense battle, Sword Immortal Ling Shu felt his blood boil with excitement, but at the same time, he also felt deeply puzzled. Every time he felt that he had a more comprehensive understanding of Jiyu Shen Yuan would break his understanding and display even more powerful strength. True Lord Erlang's three-pointed double-edged blade and 9 revolutions mystical art are unparalleled. No matter how far back in the past, in terms of physical strength, there are definitely no more than 10 people who can compare to true Lord Erlang, Queen Wangshu said calmly. In other words, in terms of physical strength, young mistress Jiyu Shen Yuan is already one of the 10 strongest people in the world. Sword Immortal Ling Shu's voice was still a little hesitant. Not one of the 10 strongest people in the world, but one of the 10 strongest people in history, Queen Wangshu added. As soon as she finished speaking, Yang Jian, who had been in a stalemate with Jiyu Shen Yuan, was suddenly sent flying by her sword. His body shot out from the city wall like a cannonball, crashing into the New Era Evangelion Plane No. 2 behind him. Plane No. 2, which weighed at least 10 million tons, was also sent flying by true Lord Erlang's collision. Like a discarded rag doll, it spun a few times in the air before finally crashing heavily onto the ground, crushing a few hundred unlucky Yuan Ku who couldn't escape in time. On the chest of Plane No. 2, where true Lord Erlang had crashed into it, was a crater like that of a meteorite. What kind of sword technique is this? Yang Jian, who was covered in blood, reappeared before Jiyu Shen Yuan, his voice trembling as he asked. Boundless chaos. Jiyu Shen Yuan replied calmly. This was the 5th technique of the 7 chaotic sword techniques. Chapter 1122. Why is the army of the Heavenly Court retreating? Why is this Yang Jian on the enemy's side? Alexander the Great was completely stunned by the scene in front of him. In the sky, the army of the Heavenly Court was retreating quickly, and that Erlang Shun was standing with the humans, looking like he had turned over a new leaf. Aya! Things changed so suddenly. What should I do? Quetzalcoatl shook her world-class breasts and said with a cute expression. Alexander the Great and the others didn't know about the bet between Erlang Shun Yang Jian and Jiyu Shen Yuan. Of course, they didn't know that Erlang Shun Yang Jian was doing this to fulfill his promise. Alexander couldn't understand why a handsome guy like Erlang Shun Yang Jian would betray the Heavenly Court. I think we should retreat. Today's battle started very strangely, and it's even more strange now. Archimonde died here, and even Erlang Shun Yang Jian betrayed the Heavenly Court. I think there's a big conspiracy here. We should retreat as soon as possible. Alexander the Great gave a very reliable suggestion. We can't retreat. Ling Bolai jumped out of her New Age Evangelion Zero and returned to the side of Alexander the Great and Quetzalcoatl God. She said coldly. However, Ling Bolai only said that they couldn't retreat, but she didn't say why. Of course, this was Ling Bolai's style. In fact, it wasn't hard to guess why Ling Bolai didn't want to retreat. After all, Asuka had been captured by the enemy. If they retreated now, Asuka would die. Ling Bolai's New Age Evangelion Machine Zero would collapse, and the power of the Fuso godly system would be greatly weakened. However, This weakening was meaningless to the Fuso-godly system and the Palace of Martyrs that represented Alexander the Great. In other words, the Palace of Martyrs wanted the Fuso-godly system to weaken like this. Therefore, Alexander the Great ignored Ling Bolai's words and was about to order his army to retreat and leave this strange and terrifying place. However, before Alexander the Great could give the order, Ling Bolai's petite white figure blocked in front of Alexander the Great. She looked at him coldly and said, "You can't leave, and neither can your army." "What a joke. You think you can stop me?" Alexander the Great looked at the woman in front of him in disdain. Although Ling Bolai was a space-level Yuan Ku, this was all thanks to her robot, Evangelion Zero. Ling Bolai was just an ordinary human, which was equivalent to a mouse-level Yuan Ku. Alexander the Great didn't care about her strength at all. He only needed to blow a breath, and this cold pilot would be blown away. "He's here." Suddenly, Ling Bolai, who had a stiff expression, instantly relaxed. At the same time, she looked up at the sky and said, "Look." Alexander the Great and Quetzalcoatl looked up at the sky instinctively and saw a huge, crown-like roulette in the sky. It looked like a huge spaceship. "This is..." Seeing this huge disk, Alexander's body could not help but tremble. "This is the Ring of Perfection." Just like Alexander the Great, Sword Immortal Ling Shu recognized the origin of this gigantic roulette, and he couldn't help but exclaim in horror, as if the Ring of Law that had appeared in the sky was a terrifying object that could destroy the world. "I didn't think that even the Ring of Perfection would appear. This is beyond my expectations. Does the Fuso Celestial System really want to take down Yuzhang City?" Jiyu Shenyuan muttered to herself. The appearance of the Ring of Perfection was far beyond her expectations. One of the most precious treasures of the Fuso Celestial System had actually appeared on the city walls of Yuzhang City. "I'm still a step too late." A golden bolt of lightning struck the city walls of Yuzhang City. When the smoke brought about by the lightning gradually dissipated, a young girl wearing a miniskirt and a school uniform appeared beside Jiyu Shenyuan, Sword Immortal Ling Shu, and Yang Zhen. To be able to appear in such a form, this young girl was clearly not a sword maiden. Instead, she was a powerful Yuan Ku. "Be on guard." Faced with the sudden appearance of this young girl, Yuan Ku, Sword Immortal Ling Shu immediately warned the surrounding swordbearers at the top of his lungs, ordering them to be on guard. However, to Sword Immortal Ling Shu's surprise, after the surrounding swordbearers saw the young girl's face clearly, not only did they not show any signs of wariness, but they also revealed expressions of relief and excitement, as if this young girl, Yuan Ku, was their savior. "This Yuan Ku is..." Sword Immortal Ling Shu began to search through his memories desperately, trying to find information about this Yuan Ku. However, he could not come up with anything at the moment. Just as Sword Immortal Ling Shu was about to use his personal terminal to search, Yang Zhen, who had an ashen expression on his face, suddenly spoke. "Misaka Mikoto, long time no see. So it's Lord Erlang. I didn't expect to see you here. Looks like I came at a bad time. Did I interrupt your battle?" As Misaka Mikoto spoke, crackling lightning began to gather in her hands. She looked like she was ready to fight Lord Erlang Yang Zhen. "Miss Mikoto, please don't misunderstand. Lord Erlang is one of us now." Jiyu Shenyuan stopped her with a surprised expression. She did not expect to see Sister Mikoto again in Yuzhang City after almost 4 years. "What's going on? I'm confused by you guys." Misaka Mikoto heard Jiyu Shenyuan's words and instantly felt a headache coming on. However, after Misaka Mikoto saw Jiyu Shenyuan's face clearly, a surprised expression quickly appeared on her face. She said dryly, "Who are you? Why do you look so familiar?" "I'm Guhan's older sister, Jiyu Shenyuan. We're biological siblings, so it's only natural that we look similar," Jiyu Shenyuan explained calmly. "So you're Guhan's older sister?" Misaka Mikoto nodded. "No wonder you two look so similar." However, Misaka Mikoto quickly thought of something and asked curiously, "But Guhan told me that his parents are dead and he only has one biological sister, Jiyu Yun. When did he have an older sister, Jiyu Shenyuan, appear? Why did I confess so clearly back then?" Guhan mocked himself in his heart. He had no choice but to cover it up. "Guhan and I are actually half-siblings. My mother separated from my father when she was young, so Guhan didn't know about my existence. We only met each other in Shanghai Pass. The circle of nobles is really messy, Misaka Mikoto summarized. Chapter 1123. With Misaka Mikoto's level of intelligence, she did not doubt Jiyu Xuanyuan's identity. She quickly believed that she was Guhan's half-sister, even if her identity was full of loopholes. After all, Jiyu Shenyuan and Jiyu Han looked very similar. Misaka Mikoto would never believe that a man as prideful as Jiyu Han would turn into such a beautiful woman. Therefore, other than her sister's explanation, Misaka Mikoto had no other reason to believe. At the same time, with Guhan as the intermediary between Jiyu Shenyuan and Misaka Mikoto naturally developed some beautiful feelings for Jiyu Shenyuan and instinctively began to trust her. By the way, Miss Jiyu Shenyuan, where's your brother, Guhan? Where did he go? My old friend is here to look for him. Why isn't he coming out to see me? Misaka Mikoto repeatedly looked around but did not see Guhan. This made Misaka Mikoto very confused. In Misaka Mikoto's memory, Guhan was a man who loved Yuzhang City deeply. He was a man who would do anything for Yuzhang City. It was difficult for Misaka Mikoto to understand why such a man was not at the front line of Yuzhang City's defense line. It's like this. Sword Immortal Ling Shu heard Misaka Mikoto's question and was ready to answer first. Sword Immortal Ling Shu also knew that during the great attack on Yuzhang City 3 years ago, it was because of the appearance of the freelancer Misaka Mikoto that Yuzhang City was finally safe. Naturally, the people of Yuzhang City were very familiar with Misaka Mikoto's great benefactor. After recognizing her face, they instinctively let down their guard. At the same time, Sword Immortal Ling Shu also recalled that the main reason why Misaka Mikoto was so willing to help Yuzhang City was because Guhan had saved Misaka Mikoto's life. They were very good friends. At that time, Yuzhang City was in an extremely critical situation. Misaka Mikoto's appearance was obviously to help Yuzhang City in the battle. Now that Misaka Mikoto had asked Jiyu Shenyuan about Guhan, Jiyu Shenyuan would definitely tell Misaka Mikoto everything without hesitation. If Misaka Mikoto found out that not only did Jiyu Han suffer greatly in Shanghai Pass, but he was also wanted by the humans, she would definitely kill him. Only God knew if Misaka Mikoto would give up on helping Yuzhang City due to Jiyu Han's predicament. Perhaps, she might even turn around and seek revenge for Jiyu Han. Thus, Sword Immortal Ling Shu still wanted to speak before Jiyu Shenyuan did, temporarily concealing the truth of what had happened to Guhan. Unfortunately, Sword Immortal Ling Shu's reaction was still a step too slow, and it was still Jiyu Shenyuan who spoke first. It hasn't been 3 years since Jiyu Han left Shanghai Pass, so he's still in Shanghai Pass and not in Yuzhang City. To Sword Immortal Ling Shu's surprise, Jiyu Shenyuan actually took the initiative to help him hide the truth about Jiyu Han. At the same time, Sword Immortal Ling Shu felt even more sorry for Guhan and his younger brother. Once this defensive battle was over, not only Guhan, but even Jiyu Shenyuan would be wanted by the Sword Commission headquarters. Just as Sword Immortal Ling Shu was feeling ashamed, Jiyu Shenyuan silently changed the topic. Miss Mikoto, why are you here? What's with the ring of harmony in the sky? It's like this. As expected, Misaka Mikoto threw Guhan to the back of her mind and explained, I happened to pass by this area this morning and noticed that Yuan Ku's army was gathering strangely, and they're gathering in the direction of Yuzhang City. Thus, I caught a few Yuan Kus and questioned them, and found out that Yuzhang City is in trouble. That's why I immediately rushed over to support you, and I also wanted to meet my little brother Guhan. I didn't expect to meet my little brother Guhan, but my half-sister. Then what do you mean by you're a step too late? Jiyu Shenyuan asked again. It's all because of this stupid ring of harmony. Hearing Jiyu Xuanyuan's question, Misaka Mikoto's expression instantly turned ugly. I didn't expect to encounter the ring of harmony on my way here. I was planning to get rid of her before she fully unfolded, but I didn't expect that the new era Evangelion Machine Zero would appear out of nowhere, and in the end, the ring of harmony managed to escape. Now, there's only a few minutes left before the ring of harmony completely unfolds. I can't stop them anymore. Listen to my advice, with the ring of harmony pointed at your heads, unless an emperor sword wielder intervenes, Yuzhong City won't be able to defend itself. Hurry up and retreat, it'll be too late if you delay any longer, Misaka Mikoto said in an agitated and fearful tone. The moment she opened her mouth, she immediately advised the people of Yuzhong City to retreat. This was something that Sword Immortal Ling Shu and Jiyu Shenyuan did not expect. Sword Immortal Ling Shu gritted his teeth and asked Misaka Mikoto in a tone that suggested he was lucky, "Miss Mikoto, is this Ring of Harmony really as the rumors say, that it can seal off all sword maidens?" "It doesn't seal off all sword maidens, it seals off all life forces that transcend nature." Misaka Mikoto forcefully scratched her head and said in a slightly manic tone, "Actually, I don't know if that's the right way to describe it. I'm afraid that even the Ring of Harmony herself doesn't know what kind of power she has. Anyway, all you need to know is that once the Ring of Harmony completely unfolds, all sword maidens below Emperor Sword level will automatically return to their swords. All of the sword maidens in your bodies will disappear, and all of you sword wielder will become ordinary people. It can actually reach such a level." Jiyu Shenyuan and Sword Immortal Ling Shu sucked in a breath of cold air when they heard Misaka Mikoto's words. If that was the case, then the truth was exactly as Misaka Mikoto had said. Yuzhong City could not be defended at all. "That's not right," Jiyu Shenyuan said with a frown. "If it seals off all life forces that transcend nature, then Yuan Ku's power has already transcended natural life forces as well. Does that mean that Yuan Ku will also be sealed off?" As expected of Guhan's younger brother, you actually thought of this. Misaka Mikoto looked at Jiyu Shenyuan with an expression that said, "You're right. Yuan Ku won't be able to use magic power, immortal power, or any other power that transcends nature. Then why are we still running? At that time, Yuan Ku will only be an ordinary wild beast. Since when have we humans been afraid of wild beasts?" Sword Immortal Ling Shu's expression instantly relaxed. Although the sword wielder had become an ordinary human under the effects of the Ring of Harmony, Yuan Ku had also become a wild beast. Even if these Yuan Ku turn into wild beasts, they'll still have 10 or even 100 times the physical strength of a human. "Are you humans really prepared to fight a cold war?" Misaka Mikoto said bluntly. Chapter 1124. Misaka Mikoto was right. Once the Ring of Law appeared, all supernatural powers were sealed. With that, the sword-bearers were reduced to their original forms and were no different from ordinary humans. Although Yuan Ku was treated the same way and lost his magical and immortal powers, the problem was that his physical strength was terrifying. Putting aside the dinosaurs and the pterosaurs, the Macedonian army under Alexander the Great was not something that the sword-bearers could handle. At this time, the battlefield had returned to the most primitive battlefield of cold weapons in ancient times. The ones guarding the city wall were tens of thousands of militia that had never been trained before, while the ones preparing to attack below the city wall were more than 100,000 elite troops that had once swept through the entire Eurasian continent. This was not a symmetrical battle at all. Moreover, there were all kinds of monstrous Yuan Ku with terrifying physical strength below the city wall. To the humans, this was a situation where they would definitely die. At that moment, the Ring of Law in the sky suddenly emitted a colorful light that resembled the aurora borealis. "My sword mistress! My sword mistress! Sword mistress! Why can't I sense my sword mistress anymore?" As the light shone on the city wall, all the sword-bearers screamed in fear. They suddenly realized that they had lost contact with their sword mistresses. The sword mistresses who were originally standing on the city wall instantly turned back into swords. The sword mistresses of the sword-bearers had also completely lost the ability to sense their sword mistresses and could no longer control them. Of course, Yuan Ku, who was below the city wall, was also acting strangely. The first to react were the Yuan Ku who were flying in the sky. For example, the Pegasus and the Unicorn, who looked the holiest and purest among them. As soon as the Ring of Law shone on them, these pure white sacred beasts instantly lost their ability to fly and fell from the sky. As the saying goes, the higher you fly, the harder you fall. Those holy beasts that were flying hundreds of meters high were smashed into meat paste when they fell. Those holy beasts that were flying shorter were not so lucky. Although they managed to survive, most of their bones were broken. They basically lost their ability to fight. Of course, it was not only the holy beasts like the Pegasus and the unicorn that fell. All of the Yuan Ku that relied on magic power, divine power, and other unscientific powers to fly all fell down. Only the Yuan Ku that relied on their own wings to fly were still hovering in the sky. However, the number of Yuan Ku in the sky was greatly reduced. There were less than a tenth of their original number. Moreover, they had lost all kinds of magical abilities. These flying Yuan Ku were just some large sparrows. They could no longer cause any fatal damage to humans. From this point of view, the effects of the Ring of Logic were beneficial to humans. However, the situation on the ground was not so optimistic. The Yuan Ku on the ground had indeed lost a lot of their combat power under the illumination of the Ring of Law. For example, all the ghosts and necromancers like Yuan Ku. These Yuan Ku that did not conform to the laws of nature were directly scorched into steam after being shone on by the Ring of Law. The steam dissolved in the air and triggered countless dimensional vortexes. They were directly scorched to death by the Ring of Law. Apart from necromancers, other Yuan Ku that did not rely on the power of nature to survive, such as puppets and modifications, also died under the illumination of the Ring of Law. Among them, the Western Pantheons suffered the most because many of their military forces were born from undead, puppets, or modifications. The huge losses made the entire Quetzalcoatl faction red with anger. In the blink of an eye, a small part of the Western Pantheon's military force was gone. Moreover, most of the Western Pantheon's Yuan Ku relied on the divine power in their bodies to fight. The Ring of Law had sealed their divine power, which was equivalent to completely sealing the Western Pantheon's combat power. The Western Pantheons were not like the Western magical beasts. Their main force was some monsters with strong physical strength. Even if the Western magical beasts' magic power was sealed, they could still fight with their strong bodies. Once the divine power of the Western Pantheons was sealed, these noble gods would not be as useful as ordinary humans. As the commander of the Western Pantheons this time, the Quetzalcoatl felt deep fear. At this time, even she could not mobilize any of the divine power in her body. Now, the Quetzalcoatl was just a simple woman. She did not even have the power to transform into her original body. At the same time, the Quetzalcoatl was worried that if the Fuso Pantheons and the Western Pantheons went to war in the future, with the existence of the Ring of Law, the Western Pantheons would not even have the ability to struggle and would be strangled by the Fuso Pantheons. Thinking of this, the Quetzalcoatl looked up at the Ring of Law in the sky. A different thought came to her mind. At this time, the Western magical beasts' army had been defeated. The Heavenly Court's army had also retreated under Yang Zhen's orders. Only the Western Pantheons, the Fuso Pantheons, and the Martyr's Palace were left outside Yuzhong City. Among them, the Western Pantheons suffered the most under the Ring of Law. They had lost almost 80% of their combat power. Next to the Western Pantheons, the Fuso Pantheons seemed to have suffered the most. This time, the Fuso Pantheon's military force consisted of all kinds of strange monsters and shikigami from Fuso mythology, such as the Snow Women and the Broom Gods. Under the illumination of the Ring of Logic, the Snow Maidens lost the ice around them and turned into ordinary women with pale faces. The broom spirits had reverted to their original form, which was a simple broom. Other than that, many monsters and spirit-branded retainers had also lost their ability to fight. It seemed that the Fuso Pantheon's losses were no less than the Western Pantheons. But if one observed closely, he would discover that although the Fuso divine system had brought along broom spirits and other similar spirits, there weren't many of them. The main force that the Fuso divine system had brought this time were all kinds of monsters transformed from various animals, such as tiger demons, centipede monsters, dog gods, and so on. Even though these monsters had lost their demonic power under the illumination of the Ring of Principles and had returned to their original forms, the feathered serpent god felt that the Fuso divine branch's fighting prowess had increased greatly when he saw the truck-like tigers, train-like centipedes, and bus-like dogs. The Fuso Pantheons seemed to have lost the least amount of power because most of the Yuan Ku in the Martyr's Palace were humans. Even under the Ring of Law's illumination, they were still humans and didn't look any different. As for the actual loss of combat power, only the heavens knew. "We can attack now," Ling Bolai looked at the Quetzalcoatl and Alexander coldly and said, "Under the illumination of the Ring of Law, those humans have turned back into mortals. They are no match for us. I don't want to play with you anymore." As soon as Ling Bolai finished speaking, the Quetzalcoatl angrily rejected her. "The Fuso Pantheons are powerful, but the Western Pantheons won't play with you anymore. It was an accident." Ling Bolai frowned. "The Ring of Law is just insurance. It wasn't part of the plan. The humans have turned into quails. Victory is within our grasp." "Humph. It's true that the humans have turned into quails, but so have the Western Pantheons. If we really take down Yuzhang City, we won't get any benefit." The Quetzalcoatl swayed her world-class apace and left Yuzhang City with her remaining subordinates without hesitation. The Quetzalcoatl's concerns were not without reason. Yuzhang City was indeed an easy plaything, and it wouldn't be difficult to take it down. However, the problem was that when the time came, the Fuso Pantheons wouldn't have any difficulty destroying her. He was a Yuenko god at the universe level, and he might not even be able to defeat a small soldier under Alexander's command. It would be interesting if the Fuso divine system killed him. The feathered serpent god would never risk his life. "What about you?" Ling Bolai looked at Alexander the Great, who was the only one left beside her. "Are you leaving this?" Alexander the Great hesitated. "What about that Emperor Sword-level swordsman?" "An Emperor Sword-level swordsman won't be restricted by the Ring of Law. If he attacks, we'll all be finished." "There's no Emperor Sword." Ling Bolai looked at the Ring of Law in the sky. "That's what she said." "Then there's nothing more to say." Alexander the Great nodded. The Ring of Reason was a genuine flood-level Yuan bandit, so it was impossible for it not to sense the existence of the same level. Since the Ring of Reason said that there was no one here, then there was indeed no Emperor-level sword-wielder here. "It's been a long time since I've experienced such a pure cold weapon attack. This time, let our martyr's palace be the vanguard." After confirming that there was no Emperor Sword-level swordsman, Alexander the Great became very excited. He really liked the current situation. Just like what he said, he couldn't wait for this sudden attack with pure cold weapons. "Retreat! Retreat immediately!" Seeing all kinds of powerful beasts and cold weapon armies pounce toward the city walls of Yuzhang City again, and the only ones left on the city walls were countless panic-stricken swordsmen who were weaker than ordinary people. Sword Immortal Ling Shu no longer held on to the illusion that they could defend Yuzhang City. He was about to give the order to retreat to the core area's dimensional barrier when Jiyu Shenyuan blocked his way again. "Please wait," Jiyu Shenyuan said to Sword Immortal Ling Shu. "My lady Jiyu Shenyuan, what are you waiting for?" Sword Immortal Ling Shu looked at the Wangshu sword at his waist that he could no longer communicate with. His face was full of despair. "Let's retreat while the city walls can still stop these beasts. Otherwise, it'll be too late. Let me do an experiment." Jiyu Shenyuan found a wooden chair from her safety wall. Then, with a flash of her sword, one of the wooden legs of the chair was cut off by Jiyu Shenyuan and appeared in Jiyu Xuanyuan's hand. Seeing this, Sword Immortal Ling Shu, Misaka Mikoto, and Young Jian were a little confused. But before they could figure out what Jiyu Shenyuan was trying to do, the wooden leg had already smashed heavily into Young Jian's head. "What are you doing?" Young Jian was furious. Although he had indeed lost to Jiyu Shenyuan could not humiliate him like this. How dare she hit his head with a wooden leg? "Nothing. I just want to say that we've definitely won." Jiyu Shenyuan looked at the wooden leg in her hand and smiled happily. Chapter 1125. What do you mean by that? Whether it was Misaka Mikoto, Young Jian, or Sword Immortal Ling Shu, none of them understood Jiyu Xuanyuan's words. All the sword bearers had become ordinary people. Failure was unavoidable. How could Jiyu Shenyuan say that she had already won? "Lord Erlang, let me ask you something. Ever since you came to this world, have you ever been hit by a piece of wood from this world?" Jiyu Shenyuan suddenly asked Lord Erlang, Young Jian. "Are you kidding me? I, Lord Erlang, Young Jian, would never be hurt by a small piece of wood." Young Jian's expression turned even uglier. This woman dared to doubt Young Jian's strength. Unless it was the Heavenly Mother's peach tree of immortality, Jinyuan-zi's ginseng fruit tree, or even the Japanese mulberry tree, there was no other wood that could hurt him. Before the wood could even get within a meter of his body, it was shredded into sawdust by his protective heavenly light. Then let me rephrase my question. Can it touch your body? Jiyu Xuanyuan's expression stiffened. She had failed to shake this burden and could only change the direction of her question. Are you an idiot? Our bodies are in between dimensions in this world. Unless the wood contains the powder of the dimensional crystal stone, or we are willing to come into contact with the wood, otherwise the wood in this world will not be able to touch our bodies. At this point, Yang Jian abruptly stopped. He finally understood what Jiyu Shenyuan wanted to say. Looks like Lord Erlang has understood. Jiyu Shenyuan took the piece of wood and knocked it on Yang Jian's head again. After sufficient experiments, it has been proven that Yuenko's body is no longer in the dimension, so this ordinary piece of wood can touch Yuenko's body again. Misaka Mikoto felt as if she had been electrocuted. She immediately snatched the wood from Jiyu Xuanyuan's hand and knocked it on her own body. As expected, it hurt a lot. That doesn't count. Jiyu Shenyuan took the wooden leg from Misaka Mikoto's hand and knocked it on Misaka Mikoto's head. Only mine counts. Oh my god. What the hell is this ring of logic? It can even change the rules of our existence. Yang Jian and Misaka Mikoto raised their heads at the same time and stared at the ring of logic in the sky. Although the ring of polarity had appeared a few times before, no one had ever thought of verifying it. Even more so, no one could have imagined that the ring of polarity could even change the fundamental rules of Yuan-Ku's existence in this world. Yang Jian and Misaka Mikoto fell into deep thought. After all, it was related to the rules of their existence and was extremely important to them. However, Sword Immortal Ling Shu was not interested. He looked down from the top of the city wall and discovered that the fastest Yuan-Ku had already begun to scale the city walls of Yuzhang City. The only fortunate thing was that the city walls of Yuzhang City were tall enough, and it was very difficult for Yuan-Ku and the others to climb up without their superpowers. Therefore, their speed of climbing up the city walls was not fast. Based on this speed, the walls of Yuzhang City could delay the swordbearers for about 10 minutes. However, this could only delay them for 10 minutes. After 10 minutes, the city walls would no longer belong to humans, but to Yuan-Ku. Sword Immortal Ling Shu urged Jiyu Shenyuan anxiously, Miss Jiyu Shenyuan, so what if the wooden legs can come into contact with Yuan-Ku? Can we use these wooden legs to kill Yuan-Ku? We should retreat quickly. In 10 minutes, these Yuan-Ku will reach us. If we don't retreat now, it'll be too late. Of course the wooden legs can't kill these Yuan-Ku. But what if they're not wooden legs, but guns? Jiyu Xuanyuan's words caused Sword Immortal Ling Shu to stiffen. Guns. Sword Immortal Ling Shu's body trembled slightly as he stuttered, that's right, guns. If they're guns, then this war will be over. Guns, the most powerful human weapon from 1,000 years ago, surfaced in Sword Immortal Ling Shu's mind. Although there were special forces that used guns in this era, they were only used for special purposes. Over the past 1,000 years, 99.9% of the battles between humans and Yuan-Ku had nothing to do with guns. The majority of humans had long since forgotten about guns. Only those who were interested in history, or those who were immersed in the glorious history of guns, retained memories of guns. If it wasn't for the fact that Sword Immortal Ling Shu had gone to the prison and visited the special forces, then Sword Immortal Ling Shu himself probably wouldn't have known about the existence of firearms. The reason why firearms had been eliminated by history was very simple. It was because the bullets of firearms couldn't hit Yuan-Ku, whose body was in between dimensions. Although bullets with dimensional alloys could still cause damage to Yuan-Ku, they were still able to cause damage to him. However, due to the existence of all kinds of strange abilities, it was often the case that millions of bullets would not be able to kill a single bandit. Such a firearm was undoubtedly a huge waste for humanity, so firearms had always been locked in the dust of history. But things were different now. Yuan-Ku had already been forced out from between dimensions under the effect of the Ring of Perfection. In that case, even normal bullets could cause fatal damage to Yuan-Ku. Moreover, The current Yuan Ku no longer had their special abilities. Right now, Yuan Ku was merely some powerful wild beast. He was the perfect prey for guns. If there were enough guns and bullets in hand, then what awaited these Yuan Ku would be a complete massacre. Thinking of this, Sword Immortal Ling Shu became extremely excited. Sword Immortal Ling Shu quickly regained his composure. He suddenly discovered an extremely important problem, a problem that made Sword Immortal Ling Shu feel like his joy had been for nothing. It's useless. Sword Immortal Ling Shu shook his head dejectedly. Yuzhang City only has a few hundred guns for the special forces. For 100,000 Yuan Ku, it's just a drop in the bucket. It won't be of much use at all. Let's retreat quickly. Sword Immortal Ling Shu's words were not false. Because of the uselessness of guns, humans had long given up on mass production of guns in the past 1,000 years. Instead, they invested the resources to produce guns in more important areas. In the entire Yuzhang City, there were only a few hundred guns for the special forces. No, we have a lot of guns, no less than a few million guns. Jiyu Shenyuan shook her head and said something that made Sword Immortal Ling Shu jump up in surprise. Miss Jiyu Shenyuan, we don't have time to joke around with you, Sword Immortal Ling Shu said with a bitter expression. I don't have time to joke around either, Jiyu Shenyuan said as she waved at the reporter behind the nearby safety wall. The reporter jogged over to Jiyu Xuanyuan's side. Right now, all the shelters can see me through your camera, right? Jiyu Shenyuan asked the reporter. Yes, master. As long as the shelter's communication lines remain unobstructed, they can see you through my camera. The reporter immediately replied excitedly. This was the first time he was so close to Jiyu Shenyuan. Dear citizens. Jiyu Shenyuan directly aimed her face at the camera and said in a low, hoarse female voice, right now, Yuzhang City has reached its most dangerous juncture. Right now, Yuzhang City needs your strength. I hope that everyone can fight for the safety of Yuzhang City. Need us? What use can we be? Jiyu Xuanyuan's words instantly caused a commotion among the citizens watching the live broadcast in the shelter. Because ordinary people were powerless against Yuan Ku, the battle had always been the swordsman's business. It would never have anything to do with ordinary people. These ordinary people had no idea that Jiyu Shenyuan would say something like need them. F***ck, I don't care anymore. I'll be the first to sign up. I'll fight for Yuzhang City too. A bald man with all kinds of tattoos on his body shouted first. F***ck, Miss Jiyu Shenyuan, tell us, what do you need us to do? Even if you want us to die, we'll do it. The people around the bald man also shouted. Count me in. Count me in. Unexpectedly, faced with such a request from Jiyu Shenyuan, all the ordinary people collectively went crazy. Almost everyone expressed that they were willing to fight with Yuan Ku and were willing to contribute their strength. This seemed to be a very inconceivable thing. If an ordinary person were to fight Yuanko, only death awaited them. But for these ordinary people, this was a matter of course. Regardless of whether it was Yuzhang City or Yangjing City, all the ordinary people had been suppressed for too long. Because of their own powerlessness, they could only accept the fact that they were exploited and use their own contributions to exchange for the swordsman's protection. Even they themselves didn't know that their deepest desire, which had been suppressed in their hearts, was actually to be able to fight against Yuan Ku like those sword-bearers, to win the dignity and value that their lives deserved. Master Sword Immortal Ling Shu. Jiyu Shenyuan said to Sword Immortal Ling Shu in front of the camera, I hope that you can order the activation of the quantum teleportation spell formations of all the shelters and city walls, and bind a shelter to a certain section of the city wall so that the citizens of the shelters can use the quantum teleportation spell formations to reach the city wall. What do you want to do? Hearing Jiyu Xuanyuan's words, Sword Immortal Ling Shu was completely taken aback. Then, he immediately shook his head. No, the security issue of the quantum teleportation spell formations has not been resolved yet. The Sword Committee has already ordered that all quantum teleportation spell formations are prohibited. Activating them without permission is against the rules of the Sword Committee. F***ck the rules. Is this still the time to talk about rules? Jiyu Shenyuan spat on the ground and said viciously. She's quite pretty, why is she spitting on the ground? Sword Immortal Ling Shu muttered in a low voice. But he also knew that he was being unreasonable just now. At a time like this, who cared about the rules? But why did Jiyu Shenyuan order the quantum teleportation spell formations that connected the shelters and the city wall? Did he really want these ordinary people to die? Sword Immortal Ling Shu wanted to ask further questions, but Jiyu Shenyuan had already ignored him. Instead, she continued to talk to the ordinary people in the shelters. Sword Immortal Ling Shu had no choice but to follow Jiyu Shenyuan's instructions and command the sword wielders who stayed behind at the control panel in the central area to activate the quantum teleportation spell formations that had been sealed for over 3 years. Under the floor below the TV, there is a floor with a skull drawn on it. You just have to hit the floor 5 times, and the floor will automatically open up. There is a vacuum storage room inside, and there are countless firearms and ammunition stored there. These firearms and ammunition, step onto the quantum teleportation spell formations of your shelters, and come to the city wall to fight with us. Jiyu Shenyuan continued to speak in front of the camera. Mommy. What's a gun? What's a gun? This. Mommy doesn't know either. Hearing Jiyu Shenyuan's words, most of the ordinary people were confused because they had no idea what a gun was. But some of the older or more knowledgeable humans trembled with excitement after hearing the name of a gun. They impatiently followed Jiyu Shenyuan's instructions and opened the secret compartment. Sure enough, they found the vacuum storage chamber that Jiyu Shenyuan had mentioned. After the chamber was filled with air, everyone saw an endless pile of firearms and ammunition that formed a small mountain. Chapter 1126. Zhao Chenfeng looked at the semi-automatic rifle in his hands excitedly and read out the name that he had been longing for. Type 95 automatic rifle. Zhao Chenfeng was one of the few firearms enthusiasts in this world. He was obsessed with all kinds of firearms and had spent his whole life collecting information on them. In the field of firearms research, Zhao Chenfeng was not inferior to some well-known experts. In fact, Zhao Chenfeng's earliest interest was not to become a firearms enthusiast, but to become a powerful sword wielder like all young people. However, as time went on, the sword essence in Zhao Chenfeng's body was unable to break through the 100 quark barrier. When Zhao Chenfeng was 20 years old, he completely despaired and gave up on his desire to become a sword wielder. But Zhao Chenfeng's desire to become stronger did not change. When he was unintentionally looking through historical materials, Zhao Chenfeng came across a record about firearms. This powerful weapon from before the apocalypse had completely captivated Zhao Chenfeng. From then on, Zhao Chenfeng became a loyal firearms enthusiast. He pinned all his desire to become stronger on firearms, fantasizing that one day he could use firearms to fight with Yuan Ku. Zhao Chenfeng also knew that this was only a fantasy. Not to mention the fact that firearms had lost the meaning of their existence, Zhao Chenfeng could not even get his hands on a real firearm. Although firearms could not cause any harm to Yuan Ku, they posed a fatal threat to humans. From the information in America after the apocalypse, it could be learned that almost everyone in America had a gun. Every year, there would be a large number of shootings, and the number of ordinary people who died under the muzzle of a gun was uncountable. In Yuzhang City, which was densely populated and had a very depressing existence, the Sword Committee would certainly not allow such a huge threat to flow into the hands of the people. All firearms were strictly controlled, and ordinary people had no way of getting their hands on a gun. So all this time, Zhao Chenfeng could only look at some pictures on the internet to satisfy his craving or buy some plastic models. He had never touched a real gun. Until today, when the biggest surprise came. Zhao Chenfeng had never thought that a real gun would appear in front of him in this way. Zhao Chenfeng immediately rushed to the front of the secret room and directly picked up his favorite legendary semi-automatic rifle, the Type 95 automatic rifle from the pile of guns. Be it before or after the apocalypse, the Type 95 automatic rifle was an unchanging legend. In the firearms enthusiast QQ group that Zhao Chenfeng was in, the Type 95 automatic rifle was ranked number 1 on the most desired gun list. Therefore, Zhao Chenfeng did not hesitate to snatch the Type 95 automatic rifle into his hands. Zhao Chenfeng followed what he had learned from the materials and first adjusted the sights of the gun. He loaded the clip with his trembling hands, pulled the bolt, and pushed the bullet into the chamber. He chose the single-shot semi-automatic rifle and rested the butt of the rifle on his shoulder. Aiming at 3 points and a line, he adjusted the ruler to a reasonable distance, leveled the crosshair with the opening of the door, and kept it in the center. At this time, Zhao Chenfeng only needed to gently pull the trigger and he would be able to shoot dozens of hot bullets in an instant. When the bolt was pulled and the sound of bullets entering the chamber entered Zhao Chenfeng's ears, when the 3 points and a line were completely aligned, Zhao Chenfeng felt as if he had arrived in heaven. He could not help but pull the trigger in his hand and shot out hot bullets. Fortunately, Zhao Chenfeng still had a bit of rationality. When he pulled the trigger, he aimed the muzzle at the sky. In the end, the bullets directly hit the ceiling of the fallout shelter and raised a lot of dust. "What are you doing here?" Just when Zhao Chenfeng was immersed in the pleasure brought by the gun, a slap landed on Zhao Chenfeng's face without hesitation. Zhao Chenfeng raised his head and saw a person with 2 swords hanging on his waist, looking at him angrily. Beside this person, a quantum teleportation array that had just opened was emitting a warm energy. It seemed that this sword wielder had just arrived at this fallout shelter through the quantum teleportation array. Zhao Chenfeng immediately understood that the person who slapped him was a powerful sword wielder. Instinctively, Zhao Chenfeng lowered his head with a wretched look, not daring to look at the sword wielder closely. "Are you crazy? There are people everywhere. What if the bullets hurt others?" The sword wielder scolded Zhao Chenfeng sternly. Zhao Chenfeng was a yes-man and did not dare to refute at all. In reality, Zhao Chenfeng had no right to refute anything. He did make a mistake. The fallout shelter was not a place where he could shoot at will. Forget it. The sword wielder did not have extra time to scold Zhao Chenfeng. After sizing up Zhao Chenfeng, he suddenly asked, "Do you know how to use a gun?" "Yes." Zhao Chenfeng immediately nodded. "Other than the gun in your hand, do you know how to use other guns?" The sword wielder asked again. "Yes." Zhao Chenfeng nodded again. He was one of the top firearms enthusiasts in this world. As long as there was information on a gun, Zhao Chenfeng would know how to use it. "That's great." The sword wielder breathed a sigh of relief. His expression instantly became amiable. He patted Zhao Chenfeng's shoulder like a good friend and said to him kindly, "Hurry up and go to the city wall through the quantum teleportation array and accept Miss Jiyu Xuanyuan's arrangement. You don't know that we can't find many people who know how to use guns at all. We have to rely on you to guide them." Under the command of this swordbearer, Zhao Chenfeng passed through the quantum teleportation formation that he had never used in his life in a daze, and arrived on the city wall where the sun shone brightly. Under the guidance of several people, Zhao Chenfeng appeared in front of Jiyu Shenyuan. To be honest, the moment he saw Jiyu Shenyuan, Zhao Chenfeng was so excited that he could not speak. His head was filled with blood. He could not believe that he could actually see his dream lover. Yes, although Zhao Chenfeng had only seen Jiyu Xuanyuan's face for the first time through the live broadcast on TV a few hours ago, from that moment on, Jiyu Shenyuan had become Zhao Chenfeng's dream lover. Zhao Chenfeng had never met a woman who could move Zhao Chenfeng's heart like this. At that moment, Zhao Chenfeng wished that he could use his whole life to exchange for one more glance from the other. However, Zhao Chenfeng was clear in his heart that Jiyu Shenyuan was a high and mighty spirit sword-level sword wielder, while he was just a pathetic ordinary person. The two of them would never have any intersection in this life. Therefore, at the same time that Zhao Chenfeng was moved, he buried this feeling deep in his heart. Unexpectedly, the two things that Zhao Chenfeng most urgently hoped for in his life actually happened at the same time. One was to be able to personally control the gun that he dreamed of, and the other was to be able to stand next to Jiyu Shenyuan and look at his goddess so closely. For Zhao Chenfeng, this was enough. At this moment, Zhao Chenfeng was incomparably satisfied. "You know how to use guns? And all the guns?" Jiyu Shenyuan did not know what Zhao Chenfeng was thinking in his heart, but directly asked the answer that she needed to know. "I know." Zhao Chenfeng nodded desperately. No man would refuse to show his wings in front of his goddess. "That's good. Camera here." Under Jiyu Xuanyuan's command, 2 or 3 cameras were aimed at Zhao Chenfeng at the same time. At the same time, a large number of all kinds of guns were moved in front of Zhao Chenfeng. "What's your name?" Jiyu Shenyuan asked Zhao Chenfeng. "My name is Zhao Chenfeng." Zhao Chenfeng raised his head and answered in a loud voice, like a peacock with its neck erect. "Very good." Jiyu Shenyuan nodded approvingly. "Comrade Zhao Chenfeng, now I'll trouble you to tell all your compatriots in front of the camera how to use all kinds of guns. Please note, we don't have much time. You must demonstrate all the guns in 5 minutes, understood?" "Yes. I promise to complete the task," Zhao Chenfeng said at the top of his voice. In fact, Zhao Chenfeng did not have any confidence in his heart, but his pride did not allow him to say that he could not do it in front of Jiyu Shenyuan. Therefore, at this moment, Zhao Chenfeng mobilized all the memories in his mind and used the limits of what he could do to demonstrate how to use all the guns around him. Perhaps the god of luck was on Zhao Chenfeng's side today. Zhao Chenfeng's entire demonstration process was very smooth. Zhao Chenfeng's memory was not forgotten, and there were no awkward accidents or interruptions in the middle. Zhao Chenfeng actually only spent a little more than 5 minutes to demonstrate all the 20 different guns around him. Moreover, the demonstration process was very clear. Anyone with a normal IQ would be able to roughly understand how to use these guns. "Thank you. You've done a great job today." When Zhao Chenfeng finished demonstrating all the ways to use all the guns while sweating profusely, Jiyu Shenyuan said to Zhao Chenfeng very approvingly. Then, she gave Zhao Chenfeng a comradely hug. This was indeed a comradely hug, because Jiyu Xuanyuan's heart was still a male Guhan. However, for Zhao Chenfeng, this hug had a little unusual meaning. It made Zhao Chenfeng feel as if he had been injected with chicken blood and was so excited that he could not control himself. Thanks to Zhao Chenfeng's help, those able-bodied men were able to use the guns in the shortest time possible. Then, they came to the city walls in batches through the quantum teleportation array. Very soon, the city walls of Yuzhang City were filled with hundreds of thousands of people, and this number was still rising, with faint signs of breaking through 1 million people. This was something that had never happened on the city walls of Yuzhang City. From the moment Yuzhang City was built, there had never been more than 100,000 people on the city walls. "Is it really okay for us to do this?" Sword Immortal Ling Shu looked at the sea of people in front of him with a guilty expression. "I'm afraid that most of them will die on the city walls. We have no other choice. If we don't do this, they will die at the hands of Yuan Ku sooner or later." Jiyu Shenyuan sighed slightly, revealing an unfathomable expression. "In this case, we can save a lot of our sword-bearers." Chapter 1127. After Zhao Chenfeng finished instructing the camera, he was the first to rush to the edge of the city wall. In the end, he saw an ugly lizard climbing up the city wall to a very high place. It was only a dozen meters away from where Zhao Chenfeng was. It would take at most a minute for the lizard to climb up the city wall and start slaughtering the humans on it. "You're the one. Be the first prey under my gun." Zhao Chenfeng yelled internally with all his might and pulled the trigger with his index finger. Over 30 scorching bullets were fired at the lizard's head in an instant. Zhao Chenfeng's luck was good. More than 10 of the 30 bullets successfully hit the target, creating several bloody holes on the lizard's head. One of the bullets even hit the lizard's eye. Hiss. Lizards were cold-blooded animals. One of the biggest characteristics of cold-blooded animals was that they would not make any loud sounds no matter how much damage they suffered. They could only make low hissing sounds. At the same time, when they were hurt, cold-blooded animals would not flee in panic. Instead, they would choose to launch the most intense counterattack against the person who hurt them. For example, this big lizard was climbing up more than a few times faster under the stimulation of the intense pain. Zhao Chenfeng was caught off guard. Before he could react to what was happening, the big lizard had already appeared in front of him. "I. Wa. Ah." Zhao Chenfeng let out a meaningless scream. Because he was too excited just now, he had emptied the magazine, so Zhao Chenfeng had to change the magazine before he could fire again. However, the lizard was already right in front of him. By the time Zhao Chenfeng changed the magazine, he would probably be bitten into pieces by the lizard. At this critical moment, A long sword appeared out of nowhere and directly cut off the lizard's head. Zhao Chenfeng looked up in horror and saw Jiyu Xuanyuan's beautiful face. Be careful. Comrade Zhao Chenfeng. You're very important to us. Jiyu Shenyuan smiled and walked away. Zhao Chenfeng stood on the spot and took a few deep breaths. Then, he let out a long howl towards the sky and once again appeared on the city wall with the Type 95 automatic rifle in his hand. However, this time, Zhao Chenfeng was no longer fighting alone. The ordinary people who had been temporarily taught by Zhao Chenfeng walked out of the quantum formation with their own firearms and leaned against the city wall with Zhao Chenfeng. They used the firearms in their hands to form a dense net of fire. Yuan Ku, who was climbing along the city wall, suddenly encountered the fiercest and most terrifying sniper attacks. Hundreds of thousands of enraged humans raised their guns and fired their angry bullets at the Yuan Ku. These bullets formed a dense web of fire. Each Yuan Ku had to endure a dozen, dozens, or even hundreds of bullets in an instant. The Yuan Ku who rushed at the front were immediately turned into sieves by the bullets and fell from the city wall. Then, they triggered dimensional vortexes and completely left this world. Yuan Ku was successfully suppressed. More and more Yuan Ku fell from the city wall. The situation in Yuzhong City instantly turned around and became extremely favorable to the humans. I hate guns. I hate guns. I hate guns the most in my life. Seeing what happened on the city wall, Alexander the Great, who was preparing to lead his army to charge, began to howl crazily. He did not expect that things would change in such a short period of time. There were hundreds of thousands of human soldiers armed with guns on the city wall. Wouldn't this mean that the elite Macedonian warriors would be sent to their deaths? Alexander the Great shed tears in despair. These be asterisk stars. It has been 1,000 years. Where did they get so many guns? These bastards. Miss Jiyu Shenyuan, why are there so many guns in the sanctuary? At the same time, on the city wall, Sword Immortal Ling Shu also asked Jiyu Shenyuan the same question as Alexander the Great. He had been the chairman of the Sword Committee of Yuzhong City for more than 2 years, but he had never heard of these guns. It's a long story. This happened during the era of Zhetian Zhendi. Jiyu Shenyuan looked at the guns that were spitting fire. Yuzhong City is different from Yangjing City. Yangjing City was built on a completely new site and has nothing to do with the old Yangjing City. But Yuzhong City was built directly on the ruins of the old Nanchang City. The Gan River that passed through Yuzhong City also passed through the old Nanchang City 1,000 years ago. But what does this have to do with guns? Sword Immortal Ling Shu asked in confusion. Please listen to me. Jiyu Shenyuan paused. Before the apocalypse, the Celestial Empire was about to carry out a new generation of equipment replacement. The old equipment that was replaced by the various military regions in the south was temporarily stored in the military warehouse of the old Nanchang City. After the apocalypse, these old equipment could not be transported away. They were still stored in the military warehouse of the old Nanchang City. This lasted for a full 200 years. 200 years later, Zhetian Zhendi began to rebuild Yuzhong City on the ruins of the old Nanchang City. Naturally, he discovered the military warehouse and found this batch of old equipment. At that time, the entire southern military region of China replaced tens of millions of sets of equipment. After 200 years of erosion, most of the equipment had been damaged to the point of being unusable. Only about 2 million sets of equipment were barely usable. No one knows what Zhetian Zhendi's reasons were, but Zhetian Zhendi decided to keep all of these equipment. However, if these equipment were stored normally, it wouldn't be long before they were completely corroded. And it was unrealistic to use dimensional pockets to store these equipment. This was because dimensional pockets were a very luxurious thing at that time. There wasn't even enough for the sword bearers to use, so how could they bear to use them to store these abandoned equipment? So Zhetian decided to build some vacuum chambers to store these equipment. Considering the lack of surface area, he simply built these vacuum chambers near the underground shelter. This way, they were stored for 800 years. I thought that these equipment would continue to stay in the vacuum chambers, but I didn't expect them to play such an important role today. Jiyu Shenyuan explained the origins of these guns in a few words. I see. Sword Immortal Ling Shu nodded. So these equipment were stored from Zetian Gendi's era. No wonder not many people knew about them. But after thinking about it, Sword Immortal Ling Shu realized that something was wrong. He, Sword Immortal Ling Shu, had once browsed through all the confidential information in Yuzhang City, but there was no record of this from beginning to end. Even if this Jiyu Shenyuan was the older sister of the previous Sword Pavilion Lord Guhan, she shouldn't know this secret. Sword Immortal Ling Shu didn't hide his doubts in his heart, and directly asked Jiyu Shenyuan. How did Jiyu Shenyuan know this secret? The truth was very simple, because Zetian Gendi had personally told Guhan about it. Back in the Rise from the Ground dungeon, Yi Qing had revealed this information to Guhan during a casual conversation. At that time, Guhan didn't think much of it, but now it seemed that he had fallen into Yi Qing's trap again. This was something that Yi Qing had prepared for him. Of course, Ji Yu Han couldn't possibly tell Sword Immortal Ling Shu about his relationship with Yi Qing. Thus, Jiyu Shenyuan said with certainty, "It's true that Yuzhang City did not pass down these secrets, but don't forget, Master Ling Shu. My younger brother's treasured sword is the Heavenly Sword, and the Heavenly Sword is also Zetian Gendi's sword Maiden. It participated in the construction of Yuzhang City. The Heavenly Sword Maiden saw all of this and remembered it. Then, she told my younger brother Guhan, and my younger brother Guhan told me in passing. That's how I know these secret." Jiyu Shenyuan smiled. "So that's how it is. Look at my memory, I actually forgot about the Heavenly Sword Maiden." Sword Immortal Ling Shu didn't doubt Jiyu Shenyuan's explanation at all. Apart from this explanation, Sword Immortal Ling Shu couldn't think of any other explanation. Could it be that Sword Emperor Shrouding Heaven had personally told Miss Jiyu Shenyuan this? Zhao Chenfeng hurriedly and accurately fired the bullets from his Type 95 automatic rifle. Compared to the frenzied and unreasonable rapid fire at the beginning, Zhao Chenfeng had already discovered that burst fire was actually the most effective method of battle. Firing at a slow and uniform speed would allow him to hit the target more accurately. Although it was refreshing to have a large number of bullets raining down, the hit rate was extremely worrying. It was extremely rare for 1 or 2 bullets to hit the target out of 10. It was not as effective as firing at a slow and uniform speed. At the same time, Zhao Chenfeng discovered to his surprise that he actually had an extremely powerful talent in the art of shooting. Only 20 minutes had passed since he first fired, and Zhao Chenfeng was already able to fire a few shots without missing. Out of 10 burst fire bullets, around 8 would hit their target, and around 4 would hit their target extremely accurately. It was just like shooting at a target. 8 out of 10 bullets would hit the target, and 4 of them would hit the target between the 7th and 10th rings. This was already a very impressive number. Zhao Chenfeng had yet to discover any soldier around him who could do the same as him. In Zhao Chenfeng's eyes, the Type 95 automatic rifle in his hands was no longer a simple weapon, but a part of his body. Zhao Chenfeng's mind and body were becoming more and more closely connected to the Type 95 automatic rifle, and the accuracy of the bullets was getting higher and higher. This made Zhao Chenfeng believe that he was born for firearms, that he was a genius in the art of firearms. "I want to kill even more enemies. Only then will Miss Jiyu Shenyuan see me." The blood in Zhao Chenfeng's heart grew stronger and stronger. It was also at this moment that a shocking screech suddenly rang out not far away from Zhao Chenfeng. A giant centipede the size of a train had actually passed through the net of firepower on the city wall and climbed onto the city wall. The sharp legs of the centipede directly minced the dozens of humans around it into pieces of minced meat. When the other humans saw this scene, they were so frightened that they couldn't control themselves, and quickly ran away from the giant centipede. As a result, a huge gap appeared in the net of firepower on the city wall. More and more Yuan Ku climbed onto the city wall through this gap, and began slaughtering the other humans around them. The Yuan Ku finally tore open a gap in the human firepower. If no one stopped them in time, then this gap would become bigger and bigger, and in the end, the entire net of firepower would collapse. Chapter 1128. What should we do? Seeing the incoming danger, everyone present was helpless. "Hurry up and get Miss Jiyu Shenyuan," someone shouted loudly, suggesting to get Jiyu Shenyuan to come and save the situation. No way. Something happened to the northern city wall just now. Miss Jiyu Shenyuan has already rushed to the northern city wall, she won't be able to come over in a short time. Someone else immediately replied. Then what should we do? Let's just run. Seeing people dying under the feet of the giant centipede, more and more people planned to escape. It was also at this critical moment that Zhao Chenfeng felt his blood boiling. He took the initiative to jump out and pull a machine gunner away from his position, shouting loudly, "I'll fight you to the death." The machine gunner who was pulled away by Zhao Chenfeng was about to flip out, but when he saw Zhao Chenfeng shooting at the giant centipede with his machine gun without hesitation, he immediately felt ashamed. It should be known that this machine gunner was originally scared half to death by the giant centipede and was ready to escape. Da. A sea of bullets shot out from the machine gun in Zhao Chenfeng's hands, all of them pouring onto the head of the giant centipede. It was unknown whether it was luck or skill. Zhao Chenfeng's machine gun bullets all hit the head of the giant centipede, instantly enraging the giant centipede. It gave up on the other humans around it that were easily within reach, moving its dozens of legs and quickly pouncing towards Zhao Chenfeng's position. At this time, the giant centipede was only a few hundred meters away from Zhao Chenfeng. According to the speed of the giant centipede, it would take at most 20 seconds to reach Zhao Chenfeng's side and cut him into pieces. Go to hell! Seeing the giant centipede getting closer and closer to him, Zhao Chenfeng actually had no fear in his heart at all. On the contrary, Zhao Chenfeng stood up and pressed the machine gun against his chest, using his body to resist the powerful recoil of the machine gun, pouring out his own bullets without stopping. Zhao Chenfeng felt that the machine gun in his hands had become one with his body, just like the Type 95 automatic rifle from before. The bullets shot out by the machine gun seemed to have become a part of Zhao Chenfeng's body. Zhao Chenfeng hoped that the bullets would be able to reach wherever they were shot. Under Zhao Chenfeng's incomparably violent shooting, the equally violent giant centipede was actually restrained by Zhao Chenfeng's machine gun. When it was only 30 meters away from Zhao Chenfeng, it almost stopped where it was and took a step forward. Because at this moment, more than a dozen of the giant centipede's front legs had all been shot off by Zhao Chenfeng's machine gun bullets, and were lying on the ground dripping with blood. The centipede that had lost almost a quarter of its legs had also lost the support of a quarter of its body, and could only be dragged on the ground. In this way, it was very difficult for the giant centipede to move forward, and it could only become a live target for Zhao Chenfeng. The whole process sounded very simple. It was just using a machine gun to shoot off the centipede's leg. There was no difficulty at all. But in reality, the difficulty was astonishing. Machine guns and automatic rifles were completely different. If the accuracy of semi-automatic rifles was easy to control, then the accuracy of machine guns was completely uncontrollable. Even the best shooter in the world could not guarantee that his machine gun could hit more than 10% of the target. Of course, because the giant centipede's body was large enough, it was very easy for the machine gun bullets to hit the giant centipede's body. But the giant centipede's legs were at most as thick as a mop handle. Separated by a distance of a few hundred meters, it was difficult to accurately hit the target even with a sniper rifle, let alone a machine gun that could not be controlled at all. In just a few seconds, all of the giant centipede's legs had been shot off. To put it bluntly, even the machine gun king Hain Severo could not do this. Once a beast lost its ability to move, it would become a simple target in front of a powerful gun. Zhao Chenfeng emptied the last few bullets in the chain, and the giant centipede's head was completely shot into a ball of disgusting green liquid. Then, a dimensional vortex appeared and the giant centipede was taken back. Be careful. Before Zhao Chenfeng could heave a sigh of relief, he heard a cry behind him. It turned out that a white tiger had been quietly following behind the giant centipede. After the giant centipede died, the white tiger jumped out and was less than 50 meters away from Zhao Chenfeng. It would take at most 2 to 3 seconds to reach Zhao Chenfeng and avenge the giant centipede. F***CK. I've even killed that centipede. Do you think I'll be afraid of you? Zhao Chenfeng, who had killed the giant centipede, was bursting with confidence. When he picked up the machine gun and prepared to kill the white tiger, He was horrified to find that he had dropped the chain. This was not a metaphor, but a real drop. The machine gun chain in Zhao Chunfeng's hand had been completely used up, and the chain fell out of the machine gun. Bullet chain! Bullet chain! Zhao Chenfeng shouted in horror. No matter how good his marksmanship was, it was useless in a situation where he had no bullets. However, in his panic, Zhao Chenfeng could not find an unused bullet chain in a short period of time. At this time, the white tiger had already pounced on Zhao Chenfeng. Fortunately, Zhao Chenfeng's reaction was a little fast, and most of his body avoided the white tiger's attack. However, his arm was bitten by the white tiger, leaving a bloody wound. But the danger was not over. After the white tiger's attack failed, it readjusted its direction and was ready to pounce on Zhao Chenfeng again. At this time, Zhao Chenfeng's machine gun still had not been loaded with a new bullet chain. Bullets! There are bullets here. Just when Zhao Chenfeng was about to lose all hope, a person suddenly pounced on him and loaded a brand new bullet chain into Zhao Chenfeng's machine gun. Zhao Chenfeng lowered his head and saw that the guy who had rushed over was actually the machine gunner he had just pulled away. Go to hell! When Zhao Chenfeng's machine gun was loaded again, he was no longer afraid of any opponent. The white tiger did not struggle much before it was shot into a sieve by Zhao Chenfeng. After this narrow escape, Zhao Chenfeng felt as if he had broken through a bottleneck. The machine gun in his hand became more and more smooth, to the extent that he had never missed a shot. Soon, the others discovered Zhao Chenfeng's amazing accuracy and began to follow him spontaneously, forming a sizable team. Under Zhao Chenfeng's command, they continued to advance forward, filling up the gap that had been torn by the big centipede just now, and narrowly surviving this disaster. When Jiyu Shenyuan came to this section of the city wall again, she was surprised to find that the humans on this section of the city wall had become orderly. Everyone was carrying out various battles in an orderly manner under the command of a small man, mercilessly killing those Yuan Ku who tried to climb up the city wall. Jiyu Shenyuan took a closer look. This small man was actually the guy she had just ordered to explain how to use a gun to everyone. I think he's called Zhao Chenfeng or something. Jiyu Xuanyuan's memory was indeed amazing. She only heard it once, and she remembered Zhao Chenfeng's name. This is a talent. Jiyu Shenyuan nodded thoughtfully, then walked to Zhao Chenfeng's side and patted his shoulder. Miss Shenyuan. Zhao Chenfeng was stunned when he saw Jiyu Shenyuan, then immediately lowered his head with a shy expression. This guy wouldn't have improper thoughts about me, would he? Seeing Zhao Chenfeng's expression, Jiyu Shenyuan instinctively sensed something. However, Jiyu Shenyuan, who was originally Guhan, could not have any thoughts about men at all. In addition, Jiyu Xuanyuan's body could not be maintained for too long, so Guhan did not care about Zhao Chenfeng's little thoughts and continued to speak. You're very good. Are you interested in taking over the command of the entire battle? Jiyu Shenyuan suddenly asked a question that Zhao Chenfeng had never thought of. Miss Shenyuan, what do you mean? I don't really understand. Zhao Chenfeng said with a trembling body. As the saying goes, every profession has its own specialization. I don't think I'm inferior to anyone when it comes to holding a sword, but my understanding and use of firearms is not as good as yours. Rather than letting me command blindly, it's better to give the command of these more than 1 million people to someone more professional. At this point, Jiyu Shenyuan paused, then revealed an incomparably serious expression and asked, Tell me, do you have the confidence to command more than 1 million people to defend our Yuzhang city? I. To be honest, Zhao Chenfeng's heart was incomparably conflicted and afraid. At the thought that he would be shouldering the life and death of 1 million people, Zhao Chenfeng felt fear and dread from his bones, and instinctively wanted to refuse. However, Zhao Chenfeng suddenly thought in his mind, if he did not even have the courage to command 1 million people, then how would he have the courage and face to stand in front of Miss Jiyu Shenyuan in the future? Miss Jiyu Shenyuan would never like such a cowardly person. I can. Therefore, Zhao Chenfeng answered Jiyu Shenyuan with determination and a hint of guilt. Very good. I'll give the command to you. Jiyu Shenyuan did not waste any time and directly brought a dozen or so staff members with different tasks behind her to Zhao Chenfeng's side, telling them that from now on, they would completely accept Zhao Chenfeng's command. These staff members were responsible for contacting the temporary commanders of the various regions on the city wall. Through these staff members, Zhao Chenfeng would be able to keep track of the situation in the other regions at any time and give orders to the temporary commanders of other regions. As long as these staff members completely listened to Zhao Chenfeng's orders, then Zhao Chenfeng would be able to instantly control the millions of troops on the city wall of Yuzhang City and become the person with the most power in Yuzhang City at this moment. Chapter 1129. Miss Ling Bolai, I'm telling you solemnly that I'm not playing anymore. If this goes on, I'm just going to die, Alexander the Great said to Ling Bolai with a tragic expression. They had thought that victory was in their grasp, but they had never expected that Yuzhang City would have so many old guns. Alexander the Great, who had been hoping to use the great Macedonian phalanx to fight to his heart's content with cold weapons, was in great despair. Just now, 3,000 of his most elite soldiers attempted to scale the city walls and launch a surprise attack on Yuzhang City. However, they were blanketed by a super firepower net formed by hundreds of machine guns that appeared out of nowhere. The 3,000 elite soldiers didn't even last a minute before they were riddled with bullets and returned to the dimensional vortex. It was the casualties of these 3,000 soldiers that made Alexander the Great shiver. How is the Ring of Perfect Theory helping them? It's clearly helping the humans. Under the effect of the Ring of Perfect Theory, the humans have become extremely powerful. What's the point of fighting? Just wait a little longer, Ling Bolai said coldly. The situation will change soon. Change? How can it change? When will it change? Alexander the Great's face was full of disbelief. 5 more seconds. Ling Bolai raised her head and looked at the towering New Age Evangelion Machine Zero behind her. She said in a low voice, wait another 5 seconds, and the humans will remember the fear of being dominated by Adam. 5 seconds passed in the blink of an eye. Alexander the Great soon realized that New Age Evangelion Machine Zero's body began to shake. Suddenly, a piece of armor fell from the chest area of the machine. An unlucky Yuan Ku was caught off guard and was smashed into a pile of meat paste by this piece of armor. This piece of armor that fell was just a signal. Soon, more and more armor fell from Zero's body. In just 3 minutes, not a single piece of armor was left on Zero's body. Everything fell off. This is. Alexander the Great's eyes widened. When all the armor fell automatically, the thing hidden deep inside the armor was completely exposed. It was a huge giant with an ugly face that looked like a ghost's eyes and nose. However, it was obvious that it was a human's face. This is Adam. Alexander the Great suddenly remembered what Ling Bolai said, and he murmured to himself, could this be the legendary ancestor of humans? There was no Christianity in your time. How do you know about Adam? Ling Bolai suddenly asked. Who said Adam was a Christian thing? Who said Adam was created by Jehovah, that birdman? Alexander the Great immediately said with dissatisfaction, in fact, the legend of Adam had been widely spread in the world long before that liar Jesus was born. According to the legends of my time, Adam and Eve were the first 2 humans in the world. The rest of the humans were born from Eve's belly. I heard that Eve could give birth to 18,000 people at once. Every time their children reached the age of 12, Adam and Eve would move to another place to continue living, giving birth to a new batch of children, and when they reached the age of 12, they would leave again. This process repeated again and again. After Adam and Eve gave birth to the 108th batch of children, Eve consumed all of her vitality and died on the earth. Her body finally turned into the Garden of Eden. Adam, on the other hand, found a world that was sealed by ice and snow 365 days a year by himself. He used the hard ice to freeze himself forever, and from then on, no one could find a trace of him. When Adam and Eve gave birth to 108 tribes of humans in 108 different places, they gradually developed into 108 different races and started endless wars. The final mission of the Macedonian people was to unify the 108 different races and merge the bloodline of humans into one. From Alexander the Great's mouth, Adam and Eve had completely different stories. P.S. In reality, Adam and Eve were not created by Christianity. Instead, they were created by Christianity after absorbing some local legends from Europe. However, There were many versions of the story of Adam and Eve. The version that Alexander the Great mentioned was a version that humans copied from some leftover documents. As for the version of the story of Adam and Eve that Alexander the Great knew, only God knew. Also, according to the settings, Adam's body should be installed in the number 1 robot, and the one in the number 0 robot was only a clone of Adam. But considering the needs of the plot, let's not argue with the author about this. Is this why humans found Adam's body in the South Pole after the completion of the plan? Ling Bolai thought thoughtfully. But soon, in Ling Bolai's world, Adam and Eve were sealed in ice together. It was not like what Alexander the Great said, where Eve's body finally turned into the Garden of Eden. From this point, it seemed that Alexander the Great's version was wrong again. Are you planning to use Adam to break through the defense of Yuzhang City? Alexander the Great was not a fool. Otherwise, he would not have asked his troops to retreat. So when he saw Adam break through the defense of the number 0 robot and show his real body, Alexander the Great understood Ling Bolai's intention. Yes. Ling Bolai nodded. What a great idea. Alexander the Great began to praise. Adam is the ancestor of all humans, and he is the most perfect human body. Even if the ring of truth shines on his head, it will not affect Adam's ability at all. Because all of Adam's abilities are powers that humans should have, it is naturally impossible to be restrained by the ring of truth. So, it is equivalent to having a real universe-level combat power. No. Ling Bolai shook her head. This is a flood level. Flood level. Alexander the Great's expression was as if he had eaten **T. Are you kidding me? This is a flood level. Of course it is a flood level. Even unlocking his seal will take half an hour, Ling Bolai said faintly. This also explained why Ling Bolai did not put Adam into the battlefield the moment the Ring of Truth appeared. Hee. Then let us quietly watch the power of this flood-level master, Alexander the Great said with anticipation. I'm afraid we're in trouble now. Jiyu Shenyuan immediately noticed the abnormality of the number 0 robot. At this time, only Misaka Mikoto was by her side. Yang Jian and Sword Immortal Ling Shu were sent by Jiyu Shenyuan to the other city walls to command the battle. Only Misaka Mikoto, whose combat power was completely sealed due to the appearance of the Ring of Truth, stayed by Jiyu Shenyuan's side. In fact, Misaka Mikoto also wanted to join the battle, but she was forced to stay by Jiyu Shenyuan. Misaka Mikoto, who had lost her electromagnetic abilities, was even weaker than an ordinary person. She would only be sending herself to death if she joined the battle. Of course, Jiyu Shenyuan would not do that. I once heard from the mayor of our free city that there is an even more powerful force hidden inside the armor of the New Age Gospel Warriors. The outer layer of armor of the New Age Gospel Warriors looks like it is used to defend against attacks, but it is actually a shackle to trap that force. Once that force breaks through the shackle, I'm afraid that even I won't be able to defeat it. If even you can't defeat it, then doesn't that mean that this force has already surpassed the Eon rank? Jiyu Xuanyuan's brows furrowed even more. At this time, Adam's body began to move. Adam's movements were very strange. He was not like a normal person who would either walk or run. Adam looked more like a patient who could not coordinate his limbs. His body was twisted into a strange Z shape as he walked unsteadily toward the city walls of Yuzhang City. This was a very unscientific posture. The center of gravity of the body was far away from the legs. A normal person who had just assumed this posture would have lost their center of gravity and fallen to the ground. However, Adam walked forward in this extremely unscientific posture at an extremely fast speed. By the time everyone realized what was going on, Adam had already appeared outside the city walls of Yuzhang City. The city walls of Yuzhang City were very tall. Otherwise, those Yuan Ku would not have taken more than 10 minutes to climb up to the top. However, Adam's body was even taller. The height of Yuzhang City's city walls was just below his crotch. Those who were closest to Adam could even see Adam's reproductive device, which was the size of a bus. Open fire! Zhao Chunfeng's order quickly rang in these people's ears. One by one, they raised the guns in their hands and poured countless bullets onto Adam's body. However, it was unknown what material Adam's skin was made of, but it was unable to enter Adam's body at all. In fact, it couldn't even scratch his skin. Everyone immediately became frightened. This was the first Yuan coup that could not be harmed by guns. Retreat. Let everyone retreat. Zhao Chenfeng was about to order his men to continue attacking, but Jiyu Xuanyuan's order to retreat rang in his ears. Miss Shenyuan, let us try again. We can still try again, Zhao Chenfeng said sincerely. No need. I want you to order them to retreat immediately. Please note, this is an order, not a discussion with you, Jiyu Shenyuan said sternly. All right. Zhao Chenfeng had no choice but to order the people around Adam to retreat. However, because of Zhao Chenfeng's rebuttal, this order was issued a little too late. When the people near the city walls began to retreat, the huge Adam suddenly raised his hands high up, then pressed his arms together tightly, and hammered heavily on the city walls from bottom to top. The entire city walls instantly trembled. When the dust that filled the sky dissipated, the people were horrified to find that a section of the city wall that was more than 100 meters long had completely collapsed from just one hammering from Adam. All that was left was a ground of ruins and the corpses of hundreds of people who could not escape in time. Chapter 1130. The appearance of Adam's true body quickly caused a huge commotion in the human defense line. This giant only needed to wave his fists, and he could easily pulverize the city walls of Yuzhang City. In just a short while, a section of the city wall that was about a kilometer in length was completely destroyed. Over 2,000 ordinary people, as well as a few dozen sword-bearers who couldn't escape in time, died under the giant's attacks. What do we do? Miss Shenyuan, do you have any way to deal with this giant? After Jiyu Shenyuan had saved Yuzhang City countless times, Sword Immortal Ling Shu was already very used to leaving this kind of thing to Jiyu Shenyuan to deal with. He only needed to carry out Jiyu Xuanyuan's orders. In the eyes of outsiders, this was an extremely laughable thing. How could a mighty immortal sword-bearer listen to a spirit sword-bearer? However, this was so natural to Sword Immortal Ling Shu. Master Sword Immortal Ling Shu, how much time do we have left? How much time do we need before the super-dimensional wall protection system can be reactivated? Jiyu Shenyuan asked Sword Immortal Ling Shu in return. 1.5 hours. Sword Immortal Ling Shu looked at his own personal terminal. To be precise, there's 1 hour, 27 minutes, and 36 seconds left. Master True Lord Erlang, do you have a way to temporarily delay this giant for 1 hour, 27 minutes, and 34 seconds? Jiyu Shenyuan turned to True Lord Erlang and asked. Of course I have a way. True Lord Erlang first patted his own chest arrogantly. However, he quickly changed the topic, and a slightly guilty expression appeared on his face. But after that battle with you just now, I haven't completely recovered the power in my body. I might not be able to deal with this giant for the time being. After I rest for a few hours, I can kill him. P2E. Even if your immortal power is full, it's all been sealed by the Ring of Perfection. Even if you rest for a few years, you still won't be able to kill him. Sword Immortal Ling Shu was very displeased. Alright, True Lord Erlang, let's be honest. If the two of us join forces, do you think we can deal with this giant? Jiyu Shenyuan asked in an extremely cautious manner. You should know the answer to this question better than I do. True Monarch Erlang Yang Zhen smiled bitterly. Even if I still have my immortal power, it's impossible for me to destroy a 100-meter-long city wall in one strike. Your city wall has a large amount of dimensional alloy added into it. It's very difficult even for an Eon rank. I'm afraid that only Flood rank or Desolate rank Yuan Ku can do this. From the looks of it, this giant's strength should have reached the Desolation grade. Even if I were at my peak, I wouldn't be a match for him. On the other hand, if your sword element wasn't sealed by the Ring of Perfection, you might be able to hold him off for a while. Then what should we do? Sword Immortal Ling Shu became even more flustered upon hearing Yang Zhen's words. Retreat. Jiyu Shenyuan took in a deep breath, before saying resolutely and decisively, everyone, retreat back to the core area immediately, and give up the defense of the common area. What? Sword Immortal Ling Shu was in disbelief upon hearing Jiyu Xuanyuan's words. Why? Miss Shenyuan, Weren't you the one who encouraged everyone to defend the walls of the common area? Why are you telling us to retreat now, Miss Shen Yuan? There's no way we can deal with this giant, and those cavalrymen outside the city wall are also preparing to charge in through the gap in the city wall. There's not much point in continuing to defend the city wall now, and it would only be a waste of human lives. It's better to rely on the dimensional barrier system in the core area for defense, Jiyu Shenyuan said calmly. But what's the point of retreating to the core area? The sword element in our bodies has all been sealed, and we can no longer inject sword element into the dimensional barrier system in the core area. Without the continuous infusion of sword element, the dimensional barrier system in the core area won't last for long, Sword Immortal Ling Shu hurriedly explained. Are you sure about this? Jiyu Shenyuan asked solemnly. Are you sure that the sword element of the sword bearers protected by the dimensional barrier system in the core area has also been sealed? I'm sure about this. Sword Immortal Ling Shu immediately nodded. We've left a portion of the sword bearers in the core area, and their sword element has also been completely sealed by the Ring of Perfection. Without the replenishment of sword element, the dimensional barrier system in the core area won't be able to hold out against such a large number of Yuan Ku's attacks for 30 minutes. Is this what all the sword bearers are saying? Are there any spirit sword bearers left in the core area? Jiyu Shenyuan pressed further. There isn't. Sword Immortal Ling Shu's aura faltered. All the sword bearers above the famed sword rank have come out to fight. They aren't staying in the core area. Then I'll have to trouble Master Ling Shu to immediately bring a spirit sword bearer into the core area and see if their sword element has been completely sealed by the Ring of Perfection, Jiyu Shenyuan quickly said to Sword Immortal Ling Shu. Yes. Sword Immortal Ling Shu didn't say anything else, and immediately teleported into the core area through a quantum teleportation spell formation. Not long after, he teleported back, and said excitedly, Miss Shen Yuan, how did you guess this? The spirit sword bearers and immortal sword bearers indeed haven't had their sword element completely sealed by the Ring of Perfection. The spirit sword bearers have returned to the ancient sword rank, while I've returned to the famed sword rank. What's so hard about that? Jiyu Shenyuan said with incomparable calm. The dimensional barrier system is a device made from imperial alloy, and it itself has the power of an empress sword bearer. It wouldn't be a problem for it to block a portion of the power of the Ring of Perfection with this kind of power. This is also why the dimensional barrier system itself still exists under the illumination of the Ring of Perfection. Most importantly, if the Ring of Perfection is really strong enough to seal the sword element of our sword bearers through the dimensional barrier system, then we humans would have perished countless times already. Jiyu Shenyuan looked at the Ring of Perfection above her head. Otherwise, as long as a few primordial grade Yuan Ku came to guard the Ring of Perfection in the sky, then without the replenishment of sword element, the superdimensional barrier system would be broken through by Yuan Ku in just 2 or 3 days. All of the human base cities wouldn't be able to defend themselves, and we humans would have perished long ago. So I'm sure that the effects of the Ring of Perfection can be blocked by the dimensional barrier system. It's just that the dimensional barrier system in the core area is a little smaller, and its power is also a little weaker, so the effects of the Ring of Perfection still managed to seep through a portion. As long as we can hold on until the superdimensional barrier system reactivates, then the effects of the Ring of Perfection will probably be completely blocked. Under the protection of the superdimensional barrier system, all of us will be able to recover to our peak condition. When that time comes, it'll be a piece of cake to deal with those Yuan Ku who have infiltrated the normal area. I understand. Sword Immortal Ling Shu was completely convinced by Jiyu Shenyuan's words. Since you understand, then hurry up and organize the remaining people to return to the core area through the quantum teleportation array. But remember, once everyone returns through the quantum teleportation array, immediately destroy all the quantum teleportation arrays outside the core area. We can't allow a situation like Yuan Ku entering the core area through the quantum teleportation array again. Jiyu Shenyuan issued an order to Sword Immortal Ling Shu, and Sword Immortal Ling Shu immediately carried it out. Soon, all of the normal people and sword bearers began to enter the core area through the quantum teleportation array in an orderly manner. You're very decisive, I like it. Yong Jian appeared behind Jiyu Shenyuan. But what about the people in the normal area? If we retreat from the core area just like that, the normal people in the sanctuary will most likely suffer heavy losses. When did true Lord Erlang of the Heavenly Court start to care about the lives of the normal people? Besides, we've always been enemies with Yuan Ku and the humans, okay? Jiyu Shenyuan sneered. I, true Lord Erlang, am not as heartless as my uncle. Yang Jian smiled bitterly. I've stayed in the Guan River estuary for over 3,000 years, and I've also enjoyed 3,000 years of worship from the humans. I, Yang Jian, am the child of a human and an immortal, so how could I be heartless to the humans? But you're Yuan Ku now. Isn't Yuan Ku's ultimate goal to kill all of us humans? Jiyu Shenyuan said with disdain. There are also differences among Yuan Ku, and I'm different from my uncle and the others. True Lord Erlang shook his head. Forget it, it's my fault for being meddlesome. Since your heart is as hard as stone, then what's the point of me thinking about this? I'm not my adorable mother, that unlucky woman who's been a saint her entire life. Alexander the Great soon received a report from Yuan Ku, who was flying in the air and monitoring the entire city wall. The humans on the city wall were already beginning to retreat to the core area through the quantum teleportation array. The humans are beginning to retreat to the core area, Alexander the Great said excitedly. It looks like the humans really can't do anything to us this time. They can only hide in the core area and struggle to survive. But now is not the time to be too excited. Alexander the Great began to adjust his emotions and calm himself down. He turned to Ling Bolai, who was beside him, and said, "The most important thing now is to break through the defenses of the core area. According to some of the information we have, the human's super turtle shell system can be reset in at least 1 day. According to the estimation you gave me, the human's super turtle shell system can be reset in at least an hour. We must break through the turtle shell system in the core area within an hour. As long as we can attack the core area, then Yuzhang City will be ours." Understood. Ling Bolai nodded and closed her eyes, as if she was communicating with Adam about something. Soon, Adam stopped smashing the wall and turned to quickly advance toward the core area. "Warriors of Macedonia, let's go!" Alexander the Great also shouted loudly. His most elite Macedonian phalanx also began to advance. They entered the ordinary area of Yuzhang City through the gap of a few kilometers that Adam had just opened. Chapter 1131. When the humans gave up the resistance on the city wall, and when the boundless Yuan Ku entered the normal area, the entire area fell into hell again. The one who caused the most destruction was naturally the giant Adam. He didn't care about the roads as he advanced in a straight line. All the tall buildings that blocked his way were all toppled by Adam using his own body, turning them into ruins. According to incomplete statistics, there were more than 300 high-rise buildings on the road in front of Adam. More than 20,000 families and all the wealth they had accumulated over a lifetime were destroyed in Adam's hands. These ordinary people who had been living a decent life instantly entered a stage of extreme poverty. They had nothing left. This feeling was like having 3 houses in Beijing, and then these houses were destroyed in an instant. Moreover, these were destroyed due to irresistible factors. You didn't even have the right to ask for compensation from the state. If there were some speculators among them, they would probably stand on the roofs of buildings that were hundreds of stories high and jump out of this terrible world. This was only the wealth destroyed by Adam's hands. Most of the wealth was destroyed by the other Yuan Ku who entered the normal area. But fortunately, because of the Ring of Logic, Yuan Ku's most powerful destructive ability was completely sealed. They could only use their own bodies to destroy. In this way, it was impossible to destroy a tall building like Adam. Although the property in the building would inevitably suffer great damage, at least the building itself was unharmed. This was a blessing in disguise. More fortunately, because Yuan Ku had lost his supernatural ability, he naturally couldn't dig 3 feet into the ground like before. The shelters that hid hundreds of meters underground were very safe, even safer than the sword-bearers in the core area. Because at this moment, these sword-bearers were separated by the core area's dimensional barrier system and looked at the giant in front of them with incomparable fear. This giant punched the dimensional barrier system like he did to the wall in the normal area, causing ripples in the dimensional barrier system. All the sword bearers looked nervously at the monitor in front of them, which showed the energy value of the dimensional barrier system. After Jiyu Shenyuan subdued Kang Na, the humans immediately went to the wall to defend and did not fully restore the dimensional barrier system's energy. As a result, when the Ring of Logic was activated, the core area's dimensional barrier system was still in a damaged state, with only 43.8% of its energy remaining. And every time this giant atom hammered the dimensional barrier system, it would cause about 0.25% of its energy loss. This speed was not much slower than Kang Na's. According to this speed, the core area's dimensional barrier system would completely collapse in less than 20 minutes. At that time, there would still be 50 minutes before the super-dimensional barrier system restarted. These 50 minutes were enough for the giant to destroy the core area of the super-dimensional barrier system. At that time, Yuzhong City would really be finished. Who would have thought that hiding in the core area would only result in a slow death? Sword Immortal Ling Shu looked at the tottering dimensional barrier system in front of him with a deathly expression. He looked around in a panic, wanting to discuss with Jiyu Shenyuan if there was any other way. Of course, what made Sword Immortal Ling Shu feel extremely guilty was that he actually didn't find any trace of Jiyu Shenyuan. Sword Immortal Ling Shu hurriedly asked the others, and the answer he received was that Jiyu Shenyuan didn't use the quantum teleportation spell formation to return to the core area. Instead, she directly jumped off the city wall and ran to the normal area. What is she doing in the normal area at this time? Sword Immortal Ling Shu's expression was as ugly as if his mother had died. She's actually still sleeping. At this time, in the children's section of a certain super-large shopping mall in the normal area, Kang Na, who was wearing cute pajamas and revealing her two thick little legs, was sleeping soundly on the bed while hugging a little teddy bear doll. As the saying went, eat and sleep, eat and sleep. After Kang Na ate her fill of the high-purity nuclear fuel rod, she immediately became drowsy, and in the end, she directly fainted. No matter how Jiyu Shenyuan called out to her, she was unable to wake up. At that time, the battle on the city wall was the most urgent, and Jiyu Shenyuan couldn't waste too much time on Kang Na. After taking her away from the core area, she could only temporarily place her here and let her sleep. In any case, her true form was a dragon, and presumably, no blind Yuan Ku would dare to bully a dragon. When Adam appeared, Jiyu Shenyuan knew that he wouldn't be able to stop him with just his own strength, and the only one who could compete with Adam in terms of physical strength was the giant dragon Kangya, whose physical strength was equally terrifying. Thus, Jiyu Shenyuan didn't follow the main group back to the core area, and instead immediately went to find Kang Na. But right now, Kang Na was still sleeping very soundly, and it looked like there was no chance of waking her up. Even an ordinary person would need 6 to 7 hours of sleep before they would naturally wake up, and according to legend, a giant dragon could sleep for a few hundred years. This time, even if Kang Na slept until she died without waking up, Jiyu Shenyuan didn't find it strange at all. But now, Jiyu Shenyuan had to think of a way to wake Kang Na up, and this was a gargantuan problem. Previously, Jiyu Shenyuan had already tried all kinds of conventional methods. Even if Jiyu Shenyuan had a 1000 decibels loudspeaker aimed at Kang Na's ear, or even made Kang Na's little face turn purple, she still couldn't wake up this sleeping little female dragon in the slightest. Lady Shenyuan Sword. Lady Immortal Slaying Sword. Do you know of any way to wake up this damned female dragon? In the end, Jiyu Shenyuan could only helplessly ask her two sword maidens. Because her sword essence had been sealed once again, she lost contact with most of her sword maidens once more. Only the Immortal Slaying Sword and Shenyuan Sword, these two sword maidens with great backgrounds, could maintain communication with Jiyu Shenyuan even after her sword essence had disappeared. Or perhaps it should be said that they were like real humans, talking to whomever they liked, and didn't need to borrow the sword essence of the wielder at all. Dragons. Shenyuan's sword smacked its own mouth. In the era when I was awe-inspiring, humans had already formed an alliance with dragons, using dragons as the price of their totems in exchange for the dragons' full support for humans. At that time, dragons were rare and protected animals, Even I didn't dare to kill a dragon. Otherwise, wouldn't that bastard Gongsun Shenyuan soak me in salt water for a few hundred years? That's why I don't know much about the dragon race. You can go ask Immortal Slaying Sword. In her era, killing dragons was like killing dogs. Even if there weren't 1,000 dragons that died by Immortal Slaying Sword's hands, there were at least 10,000. She definitely knows a lot about the dragon race. Shenyuan Sword immediately kicked the ball to Immortal Slaying Sword's feet. I did indeed kill a lot of dragons. I also know a lot about the dragon race. The Zhuxian Sword did not try to avoid it. Instead, it admitted it honestly. However, I have only killed the Eastern dragon race. I have never killed a Western dragon race like her. I don't know if this method will work on the Western dragon race. What method? Hearing Immortal Slaying Sword's words, the anxiety in Jiyu Xuanyuan's heart instantly eased a little. As long as there was a method, it was fine. She was afraid that there wasn't any other way. To the Eastern dragon race, the most important thing is its reverse scale. For any sleeping giant dragon, the moment any creature dares to touch its reverse scale, this giant dragon will immediately awaken and mercilessly slaughter those who touch its reverse scale, Immortal Slaying Sword Lady said indifferently. The Immortal Slaying Sword Lady said calmly, if she's from the Eastern Dragon clan, I'll think of a way to find her reverse scale. But she's a Western dragon, so I don't know if this method will be effective. I'm not even sure if Western dragons have reverse scales. They do. The Western dragon race has a reverse scale, Jiyu Shenyuan said with absolute certainty. She recalled the scene of her battle with Dark Dragon King Dark Shunaida in the Wudong Apex Instance dungeon. Dark Shunaida had once personally told Guhan that he had a reverse scale. And Guhan also vaguely remembered that the immortal sword rank sword wielder who appeared and killed Shunaida had pierced through Dark Shunaida's reverse scale with one strike, causing Dark Shunaida to be instantly killed by his opponent. Where is the dragon race's reverse scale? Jiyu Shenyuan asked impatiently. Time didn't allow her to wait any longer. That's not necessarily true. Immortal Slaying Sword said indifferently. You just said that the sword wielder instantly killed the Dark Dragon King by attacking the dragon race's reverse scale. The reverse scale is so important to the dragon race, it's as important as their lives. So the first priority for all dragons is to find a way to hide and protect their reverse scale. The reverse scale in dragon form is fixed on their neck, and they have no way of moving it. But it's different when they transform into human form. They can hide their inner thoughts anywhere in their body, and the concealment is no different from their real body. If you want to find the location of the reverse scale, you can only explore it one by one. There's no better way. Oh, so that's how it is. Shenyuan Sword suddenly became excited, and continued egging Jiyu Shenyuan on. Hurry up and strip this little female dragon naked, then search every part of her body. That little hill, that little hole, don't let go of anything. Maybe her reverse scale is hidden in that hole. What? I can't take it anymore. Why do I get so excited just thinking about this? Shenyuan Sword's voice was rough, like some perverted infatuated girl. Chapter 1132. If there was a third person beside Jiyu Shenyuan and Kang Na at this time, he would definitely see a very exciting scene. A beautiful girl was undressing an extremely cute little loli. After taking off all her clothes, the beautiful girl's hands were constantly groping the little loli's body, almost touching every part of the little loli's skin. This scene, oh my god. I can't take it anymore. Where is the medic? My health bar is empty. How is it? Did you find her reverse scale? Shenyuan Sword asked with concern. No. Jiyu Shenyuan shook her head. No, I've stimulated every part of Kang Na's body with sword energy, but Kang Na didn't have any reaction. It seems like Kang Na's reverse scale isn't in these places. Then it must be in some private places. Shenyuan Sword became more and more excited. Hurry up and touch it. Touch it. This. Jiyu Shenyuan couldn't help but hesitate. If it was just touching the outer skin, it would be fine. This female dragon wouldn't care about this. But if she really touched Kang Na's private parts, what would she do when this little female dragon wakes up and falls out with her? One must know that Jiyu Shenyuan attacked Kang Na's reverse scale to wake Kang Na up. Kang Na would definitely know that Jiyu Shenyuan touched her reverse scale. This was something that couldn't be hidden. Think about it. Apart from those private parts, is there any place that I haven't touched? Jiyu Shenyuan decided to recall in her mind again. If she really couldn't find any other parts that she hadn't touched, then Jiyu Shenyuan could only follow Shen Yuan Sword's terrible suggestion and go deep into some parts of Kang Na's body to stimulate it. That's right. I don't think I've touched that place yet. This memory didn't matter. Jiyu Shenyuan really remembered a place that she had never touched before. 5%. 4. 823%. 4. 625%. In the core area, whether it was a swordsman or a normal person with a gun, they all looked at the display of the dimensional wall in front of them in despair. At this time, the core area's dimensional wall only had less than 625% energy left. The dimensional wall would shatter at this moment. Open the last quantum transmission array and prepare for the worst. Jiyu Shenyuan wasn't by his side, and the highest commander in the core region had become Sword Immortal Ling Shu. Although Sword Immortal Ling Shu was extremely unwilling, he had no choice but to make this difficult decision. The so-called worst-case scenario was for all the survivors to escape from Yuzhong City, and then launch an expedition to Yangjing City, and finally hide in Yangjing City. Among all the quantum teleportation arrays in Yuzhong City, there was one that led directly to an emergency transit station. There were many supplies and vehicles hidden in the emergency transit station for the people of Yuzhong City to escape to Yangjing City. However, Sword Immortal Ling Shu was extremely worried. If the 40 million residents of Yuzhong City all fled to Yangjing City at the same time, how many of them would make it to Yangjing City alive? This number might not even reach 4 million, but if Yuan Ku and the others were to carry out layers upon layers of attacks, even 400,000 people might not be enough. 1. 886%. 1. 633%. At this time, the dimensional wall in the core region of Yuzhong City only had a sliver of HP left. Everyone didn't have any hope of defending Yuzhong City. At this time, Sword Immortal Ling Shu also received a report from his subordinates. The last quantum teleportation array had been fully activated, and the first batch of sword bearers had already entered the transit station. They were currently taking over the defense of the transit station. The transit station was in good condition and could handle the transit work for the entire Yuzhong City. Dear citizens of Yuzhong City, I am the chairman of Yuzhong City's Sword Committee, Sword Immortal Ling Shu, Hua Ling Shu. Sword Immortal Ling Shu connected to all the television screens in the sanctuary through the reporters behind him. Then, all the citizens who were nervously watching the battle found that the images of the battle had disappeared, and in their place was Sword Immortal Ling Shu's weak and powerless face. Yesterday, our Yuzhong City encountered the most difficult time in the last 100 years. Because of the negligence of me and the Sword Committee, a fatal error occurred in the super-dimensional wall system. As a result, we were unable to replenish the sword essence. In the end, it was breached by Yuan Ku yesterday, and our Yuzhong City has since faced a huge threat. At the same time, this is also the most touching moment for me, Sword Immortal Ling Shu. Even after losing the protection of the super-dimensional wall system, the people of Yuzhong City still burst forth with the most tenacious battle strength. Whether it be sword bearers, sword maidens, or ordinary citizens, we are fearless and are not stingy with our lives. We have always stood at the forefront of the battle against Yuan Ku, and we have given our last bit of strength to defend our home. In the previous battle, more than 1,500 sword bearers have died in battle. There are also more than 30,000 brave ordinary people who, without any training, resolutely picked up the old guns in their hands and fired bullets filled with their own anger at these shameless Yuan Ku. They used their lives to prove that they are worthy of being called the people of Yuzhong City. All of them are the heroes of our Yuzhong City. If we were given another 40 minutes, as long as we had 40 minutes, we would be able to survive this disaster and protect our home. But from the looks of it, we don't have 40 minutes left. Right now, the core area's dimensional barrier has less than 876% of its energy left. In 20 seconds, the core area's dimensional barrier will collapse, and the super-dimensional barrier system's core control area will be destroyed. We've lost the capital to continue resisting, and we've also lost the hope to do so. Staying here will only lead to death. Therefore, I, Sword Immortal Ling Shu, represent the Sword Committee, the Senate, all sword-bearers, all the people of Yuzhong City, and finally, on behalf of the entire Yuzhong base city, to make a difficult decision. I hereby announce that from now on, Yuzhong City will enter its final state. Everyone, please use the quantum teleportation array that has already been opened to go to our final transfer station. From there, set off for Yangjing City, which represents hope. When he said the last sentence, although Sword Immortal Ling Shu's voice was still steady and smooth, everyone could hear the sorrow and despair in his voice. This was not a simple cry. This was the sound of a dying country, the sound of Yuzhong City's demise. Therefore, when Sword Immortal Ling Shu said this, many people, including the sword-bearers and ordinary people, could no longer suppress their emotions. They knelt on the ground and began to wail loudly. They didn't want to leave their homes at all. They also knew that once they set foot on this transfer path, there was a high chance that they would die on this endless road. However, they had no other choice. Staying in Yuzhong City would also lead to death. Mr. Chairman, we need your permission to connect the quantum teleportation array of the sanctuary to the transfer station's quantum teleportation array, a subordinate said to Sword Immortal Ling Shu. This was a very cruel fact. This meant that Sword Immortal Ling Shu was going to personally open the path to Yuzhong City's demise. 167%. Sword Immortal Ling Shu heaved a final forlorn sigh as he looked at the numbers on the monitor. This final bit of energy was already unable to withstand the giant's attack. The dimensional barrier around the core region was about to shatter in the next second, and he had no time to hesitate. Activate! Just as Sword Immortal Ling Shu was about to confirm the order through his personal terminal, he suddenly heard a deafening sound. This sound was very familiar. It was so familiar that it reminded Sword Immortal Ling Shu of the fear he felt when he was dominated by a certain giant dragon yesterday. A lightning dragon? Sword Immortal Ling Shu raised his head and saw that the giant white dragon from yesterday had once again appeared in the sky above Yuzhong City. It's over. Yuzhong City is really finished this time, now that the flood-level Yuan Ku lightning dragon has returned. Coupled with this terrifying giant dragon, Yuzhong City is really finished. Yuzhong City has no future. When most people saw the lightning dragon appear, their hearts that were already filled with despair were forcibly stuffed with despair. With 2 flood-level Yuan Ku attacking Yuzhong City, there was no reason for Yuzhong City to survive. However, the moment he saw the lightning dragon, a faint glimmer of hope appeared in Sword Immortal Ling Shu's heart. The other sword-bearers didn't know, but Sword Immortal Ling Shu knew very well that Jiyu Shenyuan had once told him that she had already subdued the lightning dragon. The lightning dragon was no longer a threat to Yuzhong City. Sword Immortal Ling Shu even specially approved to give more than half of the high-purity nuclear fuel rods to this lightning dragon as food. Now that this lightning dragon had appeared here, was it possible that not only was it not a disaster for Yuzhong City, but it was also a turning point for Yuzhong City to welcome a new life? Look! Who is that person riding on the lightning dragon? It was also at this moment that a sharp-eyed sword-bearer discovered something different about this lightning dragon. At this moment, on the back of this lightning dragon, there was a human in white standing on it as if it was flat ground. It was as if the thing under his feet was not a terrifying giant dragon at all. It's Miss Shenyuan. It's Miss Shenyuan. The sharp-eyed sword-bearer quickly recognized the human's appearance. Who else could it be but Jiyu Shenyuan, who had just disappeared for dozens of minutes? But why? Why is Miss Shenyuan standing on the back of that giant dragon? What on earth happened? Many people had doubts in their hearts, but this doubt was quickly answered. Because in the next second, this powerful lightning dragon pounced on Giant Adam, who was still destroying the dimensional barrier. Dragon Knight! Miss Shenyuan is a Dragon Knight. Another sword-bearer suddenly shouted loudly and excitedly, and the term Dragon Knight also quickly spread around, so that in an instant, almost everyone was muttering the words Dragon Knight. The body of the giant dragon slammed into Adam's body, directly knocking Adam away from the dimensional barrier. The bodies of the two giant beasts collided, flattening a large area of houses, but at the same time, it also protected the crumbling dimensional barrier that was on the verge of collapse. Great, it's really her. Seeing this scene, Sword Immortal Ling Shu let out a sigh of relief, then quickly picked up the microphone and said to all the viewers watching the live broadcast, "Dear citizens, please allow me to temporarily take back my decision just now. Hope has not been completely lost, we still have the capital to fight to the last moment. We still have Dragon Knight Miss Shenyuan." Chapter 1133. There was nothing much to say. Be it human eyes or camera lenses, everything was focused on the battle outside the core area. At this moment, the two gigantic beasts crawled up from the ground. They were about a kilometer away from each other, and they were both staring at each other. A huge battle was about to break out. One of the two behemoths was a snow-white winged dragon, while the other was a humanoid giant. This scene was inexplicably similar to a series of sci-fi dramas from before the apocalypse. However, in that sci-fi series, the side of justice was Ultraman in human form, and the side of evil was a monster-like dragon. However, at this moment, the roles of justice and evil were reversed. The monsters became the last line of defense to protect humans, and the humanoid Ultraman, Yuan Ku, was the killer who was trying to destroy the last trace of hope for humans. Oh! Adam let out a cry that no one could understand, and suddenly charged towards Kang Na, who was in front of him. Connor didn't want to be outdone. After letting out a dragon roar, the two gigantic beasts collided again. The force was so great that even the sword-bearers in the core area felt waves of violent tremors. What the hell is this white dragon doing? Isn't she on our side? Why is she attacking Adam? At this moment, Quetzalcoatl, Alexander the Great, and Yuan Ku's troops also arrived near the core area, and they also saw the two gigantic beasts with their own eyes. They also saw the scene of the white dragon knocking Adam away and the two gigantic beasts fighting. They were very dissatisfied and puzzled. That dragon is. After seeing the appearance of the white lightning dragon, Quetzalcoatl covered his mouth and exclaimed, "Oh my God! Isn't this Connor? I thought she died more than 800 years ago. You know this dragon?" Alexander the Great looked at Quetzalcoatl in surprise. "Of course, her name is Connor, and she was one of my best friends in the original world. She was always so cute and adorable. Among the 5 of us, only Connor and I came to this world. I didn't expect her to still be alive," Quetzalcoatl said excitedly. Quetzalcoatl said excitedly, and the pair of world-class oppies on his chest swayed like a pair of rattle drums. "According to my intelligence, this white dragon should be the one that destroyed Yuzhong City's super-dimensional protection system a few days ago, Yuan Ku." Alexander the Great took out a few photos from his pocket. All the photos were of Kang Na's lightning continuously consuming Yuzhong City's super-dimensional wall system. "Haven't you seen these photos? Why did you only realize now that this dragon is your friend? I was captured at the last minute, so I can't be bothered to pay attention to this." Quetzalcoatl shook his head helplessly. "But it's good that you know this dragon. I'll tell her to cooperate with us and not cause us any trouble. We don't have much time left." Alexander said very nervously. There were only about 30 minutes left before the super-dimensional wall system reset. He didn't want anything to go wrong at the last moment and end up trapped in the dimensional wall system by the humans. "How do you want me to talk to her?" Quetzalcoatl shook his opie helplessly. "All our powers are sealed now. I don't even have the power to fly. It's impossible for me to transmit my voice to Kang Na. Then how did Kang Na transform? Our people didn't find any trace of her in the periphery. She should have been hiding in the ordinary area and suddenly appeared after transforming. Why does she have the ability to transform back into her dragon form?" Alexander the Great asked in confusion. "You ask me? Who should I ask?" Quetzalcoatl could only continue to shake her world-class opie. "But I guess it's probably related to Kang Na's level. Kang Na is flood level, and I am only Eon level. The Ring of Perfection can only partially seal the power of a flood level, but it can completely seal an Eon level like me. Maybe this is why Kang Na can transform. Then according to you, the two of us can only wait for the result of the battle between these two giant beasts. Alexander the Great said unwillingly. He really didn't like the feeling of not being able to control his own fate. Of course not. Quetzalcoatl shook his head. Then, between your friend Kang Na and Adam, who do you think will win in the end? Alexander the Great asked impatiently. I think there is an 80% chance that Adam will win in the end. Quetzalcoatl finally said a piece of good news that made Alexander the Great let out a sigh of relief. Why do you say that? Is there any proof? Alexander the Great asked again. It's very simple. Kang Na is a lightning attribute dragon. Her physical ability is actually not strong. Her real strength is the lightning that she can control. But now that all the supernatural powers have been sealed by the Ring of Perfection, most of Kang Na's combat power has also been sealed. According to Ling Bolai, Adam is the purest human, and all the power in his body is the power of nature. There is nothing that goes against the Ring of Perfection. These two people are both flood levels. Kang Na's power is mostly sealed, but Adam's power is not sealed at all. Under such circumstances, the only one who can win is Adam, Quetzalcoatl said with certainty. P.S. Fixed a setting here. Previously, it was said that the Ring of Perfection cannot seal the power of a flood-level Yuan Ku. Now, it can partially seal the power of a flood-level Yuan Ku. The power of an Emperor sword wielder depends on the strength of the wielder. If that's the case, Alexander touched the ruby on the hilt of his longsword and waved his longsword forward. He shouted to the troops behind him, "Warriors, charge!" It was just as Quetzalcoatl had predicted. When Kang Na and Adam clashed, Kang Na was at a slight disadvantage because Adam's physical strength was unexpectedly strong. There was no technique involved in the battle between Connor and Adam. Connor and Adam were like two sumo wrestlers hugging each other. Their body sizes were exactly the same, and it could even be said that Connor's body was slightly larger than Adam's. However, Kang Na did not expect Adam's physical strength to be so strong. In the beginning, the two giant beasts were still in a stalemate, but Kang Na soon felt that her strength was disappearing. At the same time, Adam's strength was constantly increasing. Kang Na was gradually pushed back by Adam. She knocked over a dozen buildings in a row. Then, Adam hugged Kang Na's legs and threw Kang Na away. Kang Na's huge body fell to the ground, and a few more buildings were completely destroyed. Oh no. What great strength. Kang Na stood up from the ground with some effort and murmured at the same time. At this time, after throwing Kang Na away, Adam did not pay attention to Kang Na. Instead, he chose to continue advancing toward the core area's dimensional wall. He wanted to destroy the dimensional wall system. Kang Na, remember our agreement. You must hold this giant back. Dragon Knight Jiu Shenyuan appeared on Kang Na's head and said to her, Oh no. Kang Na must keep her promise. Connor tapped her dragon head and flapped her wings. With lightning speed, she once again appeared in Adam's life. Like playing billiards, she knocked Adam out of the room. Once again, she protected the dimensional barrier of the core zone at the critical moment. Forget it, Adam. Let's get rid of this female dragon first. On the rooftop of a building in the distance, Ling Bolai calmly looked at the battlefield in front of her. At the same time, she issued a series of orders to Adam. After receiving Ling Bolai's orders, Adam gave up on his original target. Instead, he pushed Kang Na, who had just knocked him away. Then, he lifted his forehead and directly hit Kang Na's dragon mouth. So painful. Kang Na was about to cry from the pain. Her little dragon face was squeezed together like a little loli with tears all over her face. But this was only the beginning of Kang Na's suffering. Next, Adam displayed a complete set of combo techniques to Kang Na. When Kang Na was in pain, his fist directly hit Kang Na's fragile belly. At the same time, Adam's knee hit Kang Na's tail. Just as Kang Na was about to counterattack, Adam fiercely hit her head with a karate chop. What was worse was that Adam actually stepped on Kang Na's tail. The whole set of tools was so painful that this little lowly female dragon felt sore all over her body. She almost fainted from the pain. What was even more frightening was that Adam finally pulled out 2 alloy particle knives from his thighs. These 2 alloy particle knives were originally equipment used by the gospel warriors of the new era. Who would have thought that Adam would actually hide one of them in the fat of his thighs, giving Kang Na and Jiyu Shenyuan the illusion that Adam wasn't carrying any weapons. In the end, this illusion almost cost Kang Na her life. While she was in a daze, the 2 daggers simultaneously sliced at Kang Na's tail. In the end, Kang Na's pitiful white tail was directly sliced off by Adam. Then, Adam conveniently used it as a rope to strangle Kang Na's neck. This Adam actually wanted to strangle a little female dragon to death while she was still alive. I can't. Kang Na's face was almost indistinguishable from her tears and mucus. The intense pain caused Kang Na to be unable to even finish the words I can't. Kang Na was about to be KO'd by Adam's flurry of attacks. Right now, the only one who can save Kang Na is me. Jiyu Shenyuan was also stunned by Adam's series of impeccable combo attacks. But very quickly, Jiyu Shenyuan regained her composure. She knew that if she didn't think of a way to save Kang Na, then Kang Na's hard-won battle power would die in Adam's hands. Looks like I can only take the risk. Just as Jiyu Shenyuan was about to take the risk to save Kang Na, a sudden unforeseen event occurred. Not far away, the dimensional barrier of the core area shattered unexpectedly. Crap. I miscalculated a little. Jiyu Shenyuan looked at the core area with some annoyance. Although she and Kang Na had done their best to delay Adam, they had forgotten that there was also a group of powerful Yuan-Ku army under Alexander. Although Alexander's army didn't have the terrifying battle power of Adam, for the core area's dimensional barrier that only had a little more than 0.1% of its energy left, this army was already enough. Alexander's army added the final blow, completely shattering the core area's dimensional barrier. Now, the last safe place in Yuzhong City had already been torn apart by Yuan-Ku's own clothes, exposing it to the enemy's swords. Chapter 1134. Chairman, what do we do now? The people around Sword Immortal Ling Shu immediately asked nervously when they saw the dimensional barrier collapsing. 36 minutes left. Sword Immortal Ling Shu glanced at his personal terminal. As long as they could hold on for another 36 minutes and protect the control core of the super-dimensional barrier system, then there would still be hope for humanity to defend Yuzhong City. At this time, Sword Immortal Ling Shu was faced with 2 choices. He could either stay and defend the core to the death, or lead the swordbearers and humanity to retreat immediately. If he chose the latter, it would mean that most of the swordbearers present could safely retreat to the transit station. But if he chose the former, a successful defense would naturally be a good thing, but if the defense failed, the swordbearers mixed with Yuan-Ku and the others would definitely not be able to safely return to the vicinity of the quantum teleportation arrays. Even if they could reach the quantum teleportation arrays, Sword Immortal Ling Shu would not activate these quantum teleportation arrays. Otherwise, Yuan-Ku would also be able to use the quantum teleportation arrays to enter Yuzhong City's transit station. If that happened, then everything would be over. The decision that Sword Immortal Ling Shu made now was a decision that concerned the future of the entire Yuzhong City. There was no room for carelessness or mistakes. Continue fighting. Sword Immortal Ling Shu didn't have to think for too long before he made his decision. He immediately used the livestream system to cheer on all the normal humans standing on the city wall. He told them that they only needed to hold on for another 36 minutes, and then the humans would be able to achieve the final victory. Their chances of survival were as high as 1 in 2. Otherwise, once they and their families embarked on the journey to Yangjing City, their chances of survival would be less than 1 in 10. Sword Immortal Ling Shu used this method to boost the morale of the ordinary people while secretly instructing his trusted subordinates to send most of the swordbearers to a few specific quantum teleportation arrays to be teleported to the transit station. This could be considered as Sword Immortal Ling Shu's backup plan. If the defense of the core region failed, then the most important swordbearers of humanity would still be able to survive. As for the lives of the ordinary people, Sword Immortal Ling Shu would be unable to help even if he wanted to. In the end, This was still the apocalypse where power reigned supreme. Perhaps it was possible to protect the weak for a moment of righteousness, but when faced with a life and death situation, where there's life, there's hope was the correct choice. Whether in terms of height, thickness, or sturdiness, the city walls of the core area were far inferior to the outermost city walls of Yuzhang City. The effect of sniping directly from the city walls was not very good. In just a few minutes, the first batch of Yuan Ku had already climbed up the city walls of the core area. Once again, a bloody battle broke out between the humans and the Yuan Ku on the city walls. At the same time, on the other side, an important battle was also going on. Kang Ene's neck was being pulled tighter and tighter by Kang Ene's tail. Gradually, she found it difficult to breathe, and the strength of her limb struggles was far less than before. It was obvious that Kang Ene was in a terrible state. If Kang Ene didn't recover her breath soon, this little female dragon might die on her own tail. And Adam also saw this point. The strength exerted by his arms became stronger, and Kang Ene's tail that had been cut off was pulled to the limit by Adam. Here, Kang Ene's tail was very sturdy and durable, but it was precisely because of this sturdiness that it caused its owner to be unable to breathe. Just at this critical moment, a small figure suddenly appeared in Adam's eyes. This figure had appeared on Kang Ene's tail without him noticing. Looking at it as a whole, Kang Ene's tail was actually very thin, even thinner than a monkey's tail. But looking at it from Jiyu Shen Yuan's angle, Kang Ene's tail was very thick. Stepping on it was like stepping on the roof of a bus. As long as one was brave enough, even an ordinary person could run along Kang Ene's tail, not to mention an expert like Jiyu Shen Yuan. Jiyu Shen Yuan ran all the way to the middle of Kang Ene's tail. This was the place where Kang Ene's tail was pulled the tightest, and also the place where it was the easiest to cut off. Jiyu Shen Yuan's intention was very obvious. He wanted to cut off Kang Ene's tail here for the second time, and thus get rid of Kang Ene's current predicament. Chaos Sky Splitter. Without saying anything else, Jiyu Shen Yuan used the first move of the Chaos Sword art. This was also one of the moves with the strongest single-target killing ability in the Chaos Sword art. In the game, Guhan had once used this move to defeat a spirit sword wielder without using his sword essence, so it could be seen how powerful this move was. Moreover, the sword that Jiyu Shen Yuan was holding wasn't an ordinary sword mistress, but a spirit sword wielder's immortal slayer sword. This sword mistress was something that even an emperor sword wielder was afraid of. The sharpness of the sword could easily break through the defense of a universe-level Yuan Ku, so Jiyu Shen Yuan was very confident that she could cut off Kang Ene's tail in one move. However, Jiyu Shen Yuan still failed in the end. The immortal slayer sword indeed pierced through Kang Ene's tail very easily, but when Jiyu Shen Yuan wanted to use Chaos Sky Splitter to cut off the entire tail, a numbing electric current passed through Kang Ene's tail and the immortal slayer sword into Jiyu Shen Yuan's body, causing Jiyu Shen Yuan to instantly enter a state of numbness. The Chaos Sky Splitter that wasn't completely used also naturally ended. This scene couldn't help but remind Jiyu Shen of the battle between the Wangshu Sword Goddess and Kang Ene. At that time, the Wangshu Sword Goddess's condition was even more miserable than Jiyu Shen Yuan's. She was continuously electrocuted by Kang Ene and was forever trapped in a state of numbness. If it wasn't for the Tiger Raw Sword Spirit's desperate attack that sent the Wangshu Sword Goddess flying, the Wangshu Sword Goddess would have already been broken in Kang Ene's hands. I understand now. The Ring of Perfection is unable to completely seal Kang Ene's power, so there is still a portion of electric current hidden deep within Kang Ene's body. However, this portion of electric current is too small, so small that Kang Ene can't even mobilize it. I didn't expect it to come at a time like this. Jiyu Shen Yuan quickly understood the origin of the electric current in Kang Ene's tail and felt a sense of helplessness in her heart. As long as it was a metal object, it would conduct electricity. Even the immortal execution sword was no exception. If she had sword essence in her body, she could use it to isolate these electric currents. However, she didn't have any sword essence to use now. If she continued to use the immortal execution sword to slice off Kang Ene's tail, then being electrocuted would be unavoidable. Looks like I can't use the immortal execution sword anymore. Jiyu Shen Yuan hesitated for a moment before using her left hand to pull out a pitch-black sword lady from the scabbard at her waist. This was the first time this sword lady had revealed herself today. Juicy. I wonder if you have the ability to slice through Kang Na's tail. At this moment, Jiyu Shen Yuan took out her famed sword lady's juicy sword. There was only one reason why Jiyu Shen Yuan took out the juicy sword. That was because the juicy sword wasn't like the majority of the other sword ladies, which were all forged from various metals. The biggest difference between the juicy sword and the other sword ladies was that it wasn't made of metal. Instead, it was the trunk of the ancient Fusang tree. To put it bluntly, it was just a piece of wood. Wood naturally couldn't conduct electricity, so if Jiyu Shen Yuan used the juicy sword, she could successfully avoid the paralyzing effect of the electric currents in Kang Na's tail. But then there was another problem. Could a wooden longsword like the juicy sword really have the ability to cut through the tail of a flood-level dragon? Forget it. I'll just treat a dead dragon as a living dragon. Jiyu Shen Yuan held the juicy sword in her left hand and waved it in the air a few times. She wanted to get used to this terrible feeling. It couldn't be helped. Although Jiyu Shen Yuan had the ability to use dual swords, she mainly used her right hand when using the sword. Using the sword with her left hand was still a bit awkward. This was also something that couldn't be helped. Who let the immortal execution sword and Jiyu Shen Yuan's right hand firmly fuse together? Jiyu Shen Yuan had no choice but to use her left hand to use the sword. Many of Jiyu Shen Yuan's sword techniques were very awkward and she wasn't used to it. Kang Na's situation was getting worse. Jiyu Shen Yuan didn't have much time to practice. After she felt a little bit, she gritted her teeth and directly slashed down with the juicy sword in her hand. Jiyu Shen Yuan had already made sufficient preparations. She was prepared to deal with the huge resistance of cutting into Kang Na's tail. After all, the juicy sword was a wooden sword. What Jiyu Shen Yuan didn't expect was that Kang Na's tail was like nothing in front of the juicy sword. Jiyu Shen Yuan very easily slashed the entire juicy sword into Kang Na's tail. At the same time, there really wasn't any electric currents to interfere with Jiyu Shen Yuan's battle. Primal chaos split the heavens. Jiyu Shen Yuan no longer had any scruples. She used the primal chaos split the heavens in an instant. Kang Na's sturdy and durable tail was immediately broken. At the moment when the tail was broken, Kang Na's body was pushed away by the huge reaction force. She crashed into a dozen tall buildings and completely destroyed them. However, the tail that was strangling her neck was finally released. Kang Na suddenly opened her dragon mouth and took a dozen deep breaths of air, as if it was the most precious thing in the world. Oh no! I almost died. Although that was what Kang Na said, her danger was actually over. But the real danger now was Jiyu Shen Yuan. Jiyu Shen Yuan, who was originally standing on Kang Na's tail, flew out like Kang Na the moment her tail was broken. It must be known that Kang Na's body was as high as a dozen stories building. Jiyu Shen Yuan was equivalent to falling from a height of a dozen stories building. What was even worse was that there wasn't anything around Jiyu Shen Yuan that she could borrow strength from. She couldn't use the sword essence in her body either. Jiyu Shen Yuan could only let her body fall from the sky. I hope the Shen Yuan sword's words are true. My body has already been strengthened to the level of a flood dragon Yuan Ku. Otherwise, I'm afraid I'm going to die. Jiyu Shen Yuan, who was falling from the sky, helplessly thought to herself. At this moment, she was hoping that her body's strength could withstand this impact. Suck. Suck. At this moment, Kang Na was greedily breathing in the air. When Kang Na's dragon mouth sucked in air, it was equivalent to a level 10 storm. As a result, Jiyu Shen Yuan's body was naturally wrapped up by this suction force. She flew directly into Kang Na's mouth. If it wasn't for Jiyu Shen Yuan's quick eyes and hands, she might have already been eaten into Kang Na's stomach. Chapter 1135. Oh no! Mouth ulcers. Feeling the stinging pain in her mouth, Kang Na said sadly, "Sorry." Jiyu Shen Yuan, who had escaped from death, quickly pulled the juicy sword back from Kang Na's mouth and put it back into the scabbard. But at the same time, a trace of doubt emerged in Jiyu Xuanyuan's heart. This juicy sword was effortless when it was inserted into Kang Na's mouth. This was not in line with the common sense of a wooden sword. When using the juicy sword in other times, Jiyu Shenyuan never felt that the juicy sword was so sharp. Could it be that the juicy sword has a special damage effect on Kang Na? Jiyu Shenyuan could only guess like this. On the other side, after Adam discovered that his prey had escaped from death, his expressionless face revealed a rare change that looked like anger. Then, Adam charged towards Kang Na once again, determined to kill this pitiful little female dragon once and for all. Oh no! The painful experience just now had left a deep shadow in the heart of this pitiful little female dragon. How would she dare to fight Adam again? She flapped her wings once more and flew a few hundred meters into the air, putting some distance between her and Adam and hiding far away from this terrifying fellow. Oh! Oh! Adam couldn't speak and could only make a few whining sounds. Adam grabbed wildly towards the sky, trying to pull Kang Na down. Of course, this was impossible. At this time, Adam was a few hundred meters away from Kang Na, and Adam himself didn't have the ability to fly. It was impossible to catch Kang Na, who was flying in the air. But Adam wasn't just blindly grabbing. After discovering that he couldn't catch Kang Na, Adam suddenly picked up a round iron ball from beside him. This iron ball looked like an iron ball in Adam's hand, but in fact, it was a spherical dome decoration of a large shopping mall. An iron ball that could accommodate thousands of people was like an ordinary basketball in Adam's hand. Not good, dodge. Jiyu Shenyuan immediately said to Kang Na, but it was already a little too late. That spherical dome was thrown out by Adam with all his might, directly smashing onto Kang Na's head, causing Kang Na to sway in the air, almost directly falling from the sky. Seeing that Kang Na was hit by his attack, Adam became excited. He picked up some things beside him and threw them at Kang Na. However, Adam could no longer find a domed dome like before. He could only pick up the ruins of a high-rise building and throw them at Kang Na like rocks. Perhaps it was Adam's accuracy or Kang Na's stupidity in dodging, but out of the 10 pieces Adam threw, 7 or 8 of them hit the unlucky Kang Na. Although Kang Na didn't receive any serious injuries, they still left quite a few bloody marks on her body. Oh no! Konna flapped her wings forcefully to express the anger in her heart. It was fine that her strength was inferior to this ugly fellow, but she didn't expect that she would become a live target in the air. This was a huge blow to Kang Na's little self-esteem. Fly left. At this moment, Kang Na suddenly heard this command from the human in her mouth. Kang Na, who was dizzy from being smashed by Adam, flew towards her left. As expected, she narrowly dodged a piece of rubble that was smashing towards her. Fly right, fly down, fly up. Jiyu Shenyuan acted like she was playing a game of dodgeball, constantly ordering Kang Na to fly in different directions. With Jiyu Xuanyuan's command, the rocks that Adam threw could no longer find Kang Na. Kang Na also seemed to have discovered a very fun game, becoming more and more cheerful, quickly forgetting the pain she had just received. Ignore her, directly destroy the core. Ling Bolai, who was controlling Adam from afar, had already issued this command for the 36th time. Ling Bolai's intelligence wasn't bad. She obviously knew that Adam's entanglement with Kang Na wouldn't have any results, and would instead delay the little time she had left. However, Ling Bolai's control over Adam wasn't as strong as she had imagined. Adam still seemed to retain a certain level of self-awareness. When Adam was in a slightly agitated state of mind, he would habitually ignore Ling Bolai's commands, and all Ling Bolai could do was to constantly repeat and strengthen her commands. Fortunately, under Ling Bolai's persistent efforts, Adam finally regained his reaction to Ling Bolai's commands. He gave up on this game of fighting little female dragons, and once again advanced towards the nearby core. Jiyu Shenyuan could see very clearly from Kang Na's dragon mouth. The humans in the core were currently engaged in a life-and-death struggle with the Yuan Ku who had attacked the city walls. The battle was extremely stalemated. Any change in the strength of one side could possibly cause the entire battle to collapse. Once Adam entered the battle, then the collapse of the humans would probably happen in an instant. Kang Na, hurry down and stop that fellow. Jiyu Shenyuan ordered Kang Na with some urgency. No! Kang Na shook her head forcefully, shaking Jiyu Shenyuan in her mouth until she felt dizzy. This fellow's strength is too great. His strength is too great. Kang Na can't beat him. Kang Na can't even breathe. It seemed that Kang Na was still immersed in the fear of being strangled by Adam, and no longer had the courage to fight Adam in close combat. It's all right. I guarantee that this time only you bully him, he won't bully you. Jiyu Shenyuan said to Kang Na with certainty. Oh no, oh no. Kang Na decisively pretended to be ignorant, her mouth constantly repeating the words oh no. Kang Na, have you forgotten that you were dodging the attacks under my command? Ever since you listened to my command, have you been hit by a rock again? Jiyu Shenyuan stroked her hill-sized teeth, and said with an incomparably gentle and firm tone, Kang Na, believe me, I can help you take revenge. Just now when he was strangling your neck, I was the one who told you to strangle his neck. Really? Kang Na's words were still somewhat hesitant, but she was obviously moved by Jiyu Shenyuan's words. Of course it's true. Jiyu Shenyuan struck while the iron was hot. How about this? I'll give you another month's worth of high-purity nuclear fuel rod. 5 months, 4 months. Kang Na originally wanted to raise 5 fingers to express the weight of 5 months, but Kang Na somewhat sadly discovered that she only had 4 fingers on her dragon claw, so she could only helplessly take the initiative to reduce the number by 1 month. At this moment, Kang Na deeply experienced the sorrow of having too few fingers. She so desperately wished that she had as many fingers as possible. What? You said the number of fingers has nothing to do with the number of months of food. What a joke. Our Kang Na is a well-behaved child. The number she said must correspond to the number of fingers she stretched out, otherwise it would be too discordant. Deal. If time allowed, Jiyu Shenyuan would definitely bargain with Kang Na for a while. But the problem now was that Jiyu Shenyuan simply didn't allow any more time to be wasted. After obtaining Jiyu Shenyuan's promise, Kang Na instantly became full of vigor. After letting out a few dragon roars, she once again flew towards Adam. Don't head towards the core area, Jiyu Shenyuan shouted loudly in Kang Na's mouth, but Kang Na didn't seem to hear clearly, still flying towards the core area. In the end, the moment Kang Na's body pounced on Adam's body, the 2 huge beasts' bodies leaned against each other, and finally crashed into the wall of the core area at the same time. Rumble, a large part of the wall of the core area collapsed in an instant. Whether it was normal humans or Yuan Ku, all of them were instantly smashed into meat paste by these 2 huge beasts. The entire section of the wall was completely wiped out. You stupid female dragon. Seeing this scene, Jiyu Shenyuan simply wanted to cry but had no tears. At least 3,000 to 4,000 people had died from the collision just now. Oh no. How did you know that Kang Na was raised by pure breast milk? This Kang Na really had a hearing problem. In Kang Na's ears, it sounded like pure breast milk. Kang Na, listen up. From now on, you must listen to my orders completely. If you disobey even one of them, I will reduce your food supply for a month. Jiyu Shenyuan had no choice but to use food to threaten this silly little female dragon. Oh! Kang Na gave a weak oh sound. At this moment, Adam also crawled up from the ground. Seeing Kang Na knocking him down once again, he was instantly enraged. Ignoring Ling Bolai's orders behind him, he directly attacked Kang Na. Then take 3 steps back, punch to the left, and then use your head. Jiyu Shenyuan quickly issued a series of orders to Kang Na. Kang Na's execution of orders was still a little stiff. A lot of the connections were a beat slower. But even so, the results were still better than expected. Kang Na directly avoided Adam's attack by taking 3 steps back. Punching to the left forced Adam to dodge to the right, thus revealing an opening. Finally, Kang Na used her head to block, the sharp dragon horn directly piercing into Adam's body. A stream of dark red blood directly flowed out from Adam's wound. Oh no! He's bleeding. Seeing Adam bleeding, Kang Na actually went into a daze for a while. This was the first time she made Adam bleed since the start of the battle. Don't stare blankly, run 5 steps to the left, then 3 steps back, quick. Jiyu Shenyuan's command was quickly transmitted over. Under Jiyu Shenyuan's command, Kang Na, this silly little female dragon whose close combat abilities were terrible to the extreme, actually transformed into a dragon combat expert in an instant. Adam's consecutive attacks were all nullified by Kang Na. Instead, Kang Na took advantage of the time when her body was exposed, and used her dragon horn to ferociously bash him a few times. The blood-dripping wounds on her body gradually increased. Oh no! Kang Na is so amazing. Seeing that she had the advantage in all aspects, Kang Na happily and foolishly laughed, as expected of a stupid little female dragon. Chapter 1136. Roar. Adam let out a painful howl as he was hit by Kangnya. Then, he started to attack Kangnya crazily again. Back. Left. Bend over. Punch. Under Jiyu Xuanyuan's command, Kangnya turned into a nimble female dragon. Not only did Adam's attacks not hit Kangnya, but he also got hit by Kangnya's dragon horns a few more times. This made Adam even crazier. Don't fight with this female dragon. Attack the core area directly. On a tall building in the distance, the expressionless Ling Bolai finally changed her expression. She looked anxious. There were only 30 minutes left before the super-dimensional protection wall reactivated. If they couldn't attack the core area and destroy the super-dimensional protection wall system's core controller, then this attack would definitely end in failure. This was something that the Fuso Celestial System, which had invested a lot of effort and resources, couldn't accept. Kangnya's attacks couldn't cause any fatal damage to Adam. Right now, Adam only needed to ignore Kangnya's attacks and attack the core area to achieve his goal. But Kang Na's attacks had already caused Adam to completely enter a berserk state. Ling Bolai's orders were already very weak to Adam, and after Adam's mental state had gone berserk, such orders were directly thrown to the back of his mind. No matter how Ling Bolai repeated her orders, Adam would always be entangled with Kang Na. Damn it! Ling Bolai gritted her teeth. Then, she stood on the side of the tall building. She leaped forward with her long legs and jumped down from the tall building. Even without the Ring of Perfection, Ling Bolai was just an ordinary person. Not to mention, she was currently in a building that was 600 to 700 meters tall. Jumping down from such a height was undoubtedly suicidal for Ling Bolai. However, when Ling Bolai jumped off, her battle suit suddenly shot out 2 streams of gas. It seemed like Ling Bolai's battle suit had the function of flying rockets. Ling Bolai quickly glided in the air and landed beside the Shan Wu Emperor and Quetzalcoatl God. You scared me to death. Alexander the Great saw Ling Bolai descending from the sky beside him, and he was instantly shocked. There's no time. Ling Bolai's words were short and concise. Your troops must immediately rush into the core area and destroy the super-dimensional protection wall. What about that Adam? Alexander the Great glanced at Adam, who was fighting fiercely with Kangnya. Just let Adam do it. This shouldn't be a difficult task for him. Adam can't control it anymore. Ling Bolai shook her head and said decisively, either you destroy the super-dimensional barrier, or I'll leave immediately. Are you kidding me? You can't control what you brought. Alexander thought Lena was joking at first, but when he saw Lena's pale face, he knew that Lena wasn't joking. She really couldn't control Adam anymore. If Adam and Connor continued to be entangled, then after 30 minutes, wouldn't everything be, brave soldiers, follow me? Thinking of this, Alexander the Great could no longer remain calm. He already knew that this was the most critical moment. If they could not break through the defense of the human core area, then all of them would be trapped in Yuzhong City like turtles in a jar. Left with no choice, Alexander could only lead his elite guards into battle. Brave soldiers, I promise you right here, as long as you can charge into that gap, the entire city will be your toy as long as the legions don't hold their weapons for 3 days. Alexander the Great mobilized his soldiers. The so-called 3 days of no military lockdown meant that they would slaughter the entire city for 3 days. Within these 3 days, the military law would no longer restrict the soldiers of the Great Shan Empire. All the humans and belongings in the city would be looted by these soldiers. Hooray! Hooray! All of Alexander the Great's soldiers instantly burst into thunderous cheers, and the morale of the entire army rose at a visible rate. All of the soldiers' eyes turned blood red, and their muscles bulged as if they were berserk warriors. In ancient times, this was undoubtedly the biggest disaster for a city. All of the city's residents would be wiped out, their belongings would be robbed, their houses would be destroyed, their men would be hacked to death, their women would be endlessly raped, their children would be enslaved, and the entire city would be destroyed within 3 days. This was the most effective way to motivate soldiers in ancient times. All of the soldiers would explode into a frenzy after hearing such an order from their superiors. No one could resist the temptation of not having their weapons locked up for 3 days. However, the situation now was different. Most of the soldiers under Alexander the Great's control were below the flood dragon level. Due to their low levels, they lost their basic intelligence after coming to this world through the dimensional gate. They became puppets that only knew how to live and fight according to their instincts from their previous lives. They became crazy about Alexander the Great's promise not to have their weapons locked up for 3 days, not because they were really excited about the possibility of looting. Instead, it was because this promise activated the instincts of these puppets. They were excited because of their instincts from their previous lives, and there was no rational component to this. However, this was actually no different. Once these soldiers broke into the core area, they would still act according to their instincts from their previous lives and carry out a merciless looting of Yuzhang City. The result would be the same. Yuzhang City would suffer a huge catastrophe. Sword Immortal Ling Shu, look. What's that? A reporter behind Sword Immortal Ling Shu pointed at a cloud of dust in the distance and screamed in shock. Sword Immortal Ling Shu focused his gaze to discover that it was a vast horde of silver-armored cavalry that stretched as far as the eye could see, charging toward the city walls of the core region. It's Alexander the Great's most elite Macedonian Imperial Guard Legion. The expression on Sword Immortal Ling Shu's face changed more than 10 times in an instant. Sword Immortal Ling Shu knew about this Imperial Guard Legion. As Alexander the Great's most powerful weapon, the Macedonian Imperial Guard Legion had extremely terrifying combat abilities. Every soldier was a soul rank Yuan Ku, which was equivalent to the top swordbearers. And when these swordbearers were organized into a legion that obeyed orders and formed a huge whole, this kind of power became even more terrifying. Most importantly, the Macedonian Imperial Guard Legion was composed of Yuan Ku with powerful physical strength. Even with the halo of law above their heads, the actual combat strength of these Imperial Guards did not decrease much. At most, they dropped from Soul rank Yuan Ku to Ghost rank Yuan Ku. Previously, because Alexander the Great wanted to preserve his strength and because cavalry was not good at attacking cities, Alexander the Great kept this legion by his side and did not send out any humans to attack. But why now? Why did he send out this legion now? Thinking of this, Sword Immortal Ling Shu hurriedly ran to the top of the city wall. At a glance, he saw a section of the city wall that had been destroyed by the battle between Adam and Kang Na. His heart was filled with shock, and he shouted, "The target of this Imperial Guard Legion is that section of the city wall. They want to break into the core area through the city wall." Sword Immortal Ling Shu was extremely flustered. That gap in the city wall was no different from flat ground to the horde of cavalrymen. These cavalrymen could easily charge into the core region. Once the personal guard army entered the core region, the core control equipment of the super-dimensional wall system would lose all of its barriers. Not taking into account anything else, they just had to kill all of the technicians who were repairing the core control equipment, and the super-dimensional wall system would no longer be able to be repaired. What should I do? What should I do? Sword Immortal Ling Shu was so flustered that he didn't even have the ability to think. He didn't know how to deal with the situation at hand. The bubble of the entire Yuzhang city would burst under the iron hooves of the Macedonian Imperial Guard Legion. "Brothers, follow me. We must block this opening even if we die." At this critical juncture, a person's shout suddenly sounded from Sword Immortal Ling Shu's personal terminal. Sword Immortal Ling Shu remembered this voice. This was the voice of Zhao Chenfeng, the commander-in-chief of all the ordinary human soldiers. Because Zhao Chenfeng was the commander-in-chief of all the ordinary humans, Sword Immortal Ling Shu temporarily granted Zhao Chenfeng the right to use the public channel to give orders to everyone at the request of Jiyu Shenyuan. Thus, this voice could also automatically reach Sword Immortal Ling Shu's ears. What is this guy trying to do? Sword Immortal Ling Shu hurriedly looked in Zhao Chenfeng's direction, and then he was completely stunned. Sword Immortal Ling Shu saw countless soldiers armed with guns jump down from the surrounding city walls under Zhao Chunfeng's lead. They surged over from both sides of the city wall, and the surging crowd quickly filled the entire opening. These ordinary humans were actually using their own flesh and blood to temporarily block the opening in the city wall. Brothers. Zhao Chenfeng continued to mobilize everyone through the public channel on his personal terminal. Behind us is our final line of defense. Once the super-dimensional wall protection system is destroyed, our Yuzhong city will be finished. Our family, friends, lovers, and children in Yuzhong city will all be finished as well. In the end, they will all become Yuan Ku's food, or rather, become Yuan Ku's tools to vent his bestial desires. Is this the ending that we wish to see? Now that the battle has reached its final juncture, I hope that everyone who still has the guts to join me and use their own flesh and blood to block this opening, and fight to the death against these Yuan Kus. I can tell everyone very clearly that as long as you come here, you will die without a doubt. You are fated to die here, and use your own blood to spill over the entire battlefield. But, Zhao Chunfeng's voice suddenly rose by a few hundred decibels, as if he was shouting from the depths of his soul. Behind us is our most precious treasure. Comrades, today is the day to die a heroic death. Chapter 1137. This was the most shocking day in Sword Immortal Ling Shu's life, and it was also the most tragic battle he had ever seen. Under Zhao Chunfeng's encouragement, hundreds of thousands of ordinary humans jumped into this gap with the conviction that they would die, and they used their bodies to form a city wall. Everyone, hold on. When this human wall was just formed, the war horses of the Macedonian Imperial Guard Legion had already galloped to the front of the city wall. The humans didn't even have time to open fire before they collided with these cavalrymen. Alexander the Great, who was charging at the front, looked at this human wall with a disdainful expression. This human wall wasn't very tall. It was only about 3 to 4 meters tall, and it was formed by 2 to 3 people stacked on top of each other. If this kind of city wall was built with stones, then Alexander the Great might find it very troublesome, and he would have to dismount to think of a way to get over it. However, this city wall was indeed built with human flesh, and this made Alexander the Great feel extremely disdainful. In Alexander the Great's eyes, as long as his war horses charged forward with great inertia, this human wall would be crushed into a pile of minced meat in an instant. Charge! Charge! Alexander the Great shouted loudly, and he was the first to charge at the human wall. Alexander the Great could clearly see that the person in front of him was a young man in his 20s or 30s. This young man looked at Alexander the Great with great fear in his eyes, and his body kept trembling as if he was going to turn around and run in the next second. Poor little guy. Although Alexander the Great said that, he actually didn't feel any pity. What he loved the most was the thrill of trampling on the corpses of his enemies with his horse's hooves. At first, it was just as Alexander the Great expected. Under the impact of his horse's hooves, this young man in his 20s or 30s was immediately kicked in the head. His entire face was caved in by the horse's hooves, and all sorts of red and white things that looked like tofu gushed out of his broken head. This pitiful but heroic warrior died under the hooves of Alexander the Great. The death of this soldier was a signal, and the cavalrymen who were following behind King Alexander did the same thing. They rammed into the wall of human flesh, trying to crush this overconfident wall of human flesh into meat paste. There were also many people who sacrificed their precious lives like this warrior who had his head crushed by Alexander's warhorse. In fact, those who died first were considered lucky. Those who didn't die first could only watch as their intestines, hearts, and other internal organs flowed out of their stomachs. They suffered the most painful torture in their lives before dying on the battlefield. However, that was the end of Alexander the Great's plan. The wall of human flesh didn't instantly collapse under the impact of the horse hooves. Although the wall of human flesh shook and fell, it withstood the most powerful impact as Alexander the Great expected. The wall of human flesh didn't show any signs of collapsing. Once the wall of human flesh stopped the first wave of impact, the situation instantly turned around and became extremely disadvantageous for Alexander the Great's elite legion. The cavalrymen in the front were stopped, But the second and third waves of cavalrymen couldn't stop immediately. The inertia of the war horses forced them to continue charging forward. Therefore, the second and third waves of cavalrymen often rammed into the first wave of cavalrymen. The first wave of cavalrymen and war horses tragically followed in the footsteps of the humans who died before them. They were trampled into meat paste by the second and third waves of cavalrymen. If Alexander the Great didn't order the fourth and fifth waves of cavalrymen to turn around and go around a big bend, the second and third waves of cavalrymen would also be trampled to death by the fourth and fifth waves of cavalrymen. What is going on? Even though Alexander the Great was under great pressure, his head was stomped on by a cavalryman behind him, and he almost fainted from the pain. If Alexander the Great's body wasn't tough enough, he would have died just like that soldier who was stomped to death by him. Alexander the Great leaped up from his mount that had its legs broken on the human flesh wall. Then, he swung his sword and killed the humans beside him. Now, he was at the top of the human flesh wall. From this position, Alexander the Great could finally see the entire wall of human flesh. It turned out that this human flesh wall was different from what Alexander the Great had imagined. In Alexander's imagination, this human flesh wall was only made up of 2 to 3 rows of humans stacked on top of each other, and his war horses could easily break it. However, the reality was that this human flesh wall was made up of 20 to 30 rows of humans stacked on top of each other, and the thickness of the human flesh wall was about 7 to 8 meters. This thickness was no different from ordinary stone walls. No wonder the human flesh wall could break the hooves of his elite legion. Open fire! Alexander the Great seemed to have heard someone giving the order, and the human flesh wall instantly scattered. The surviving humans picked up the guns in their hands with fear and anger, and they started to shoot at the cavalrymen who were lucky enough to survive the charge. Facing dozens of guns at the same time, even the most elite of the guards would not be able to withstand it. These soldiers were almost instantly turned into sieves by the humans. Alexander the Great's armor was very fancy, and it was obvious that he was a general of the Imperial Guard Legion. Therefore, he was naturally targeted by the humans. Dozens of guns aimed at Alexander the Great at the same time, and the bullets hit Alexander the Great's armor like raindrops. Fortunately, Alexander the Great's armor was made from extremely tough materials, and it had unparalleled defensive abilities. Therefore, these bullets couldn't penetrate Alexander the Great's armor. Instead, the bullets bounced off Alexander the Great's armor and hit the humans themselves, causing a lot of casualties. Stop shooting. Don't attack that general. The human commander seemed to have realized that using guns to attack Alexander the Great would only hurt his own people, so he decisively ordered them to stop shooting. At the same time, Alexander the Great let out a furious roar after seeing the heavy casualties of his elite guards due to such a stupid reason. Then, he swung his huge sword and killed the humans around him crazily. These humans couldn't resist Alexander the Great at all, and in the blink of an eye, tens of them died under his sword. Infantry, charge at my position and tear an opening for me. After killing so many humans, Alexander the Great regained some of his calmness and rationality. He knew that if he tried to charge at the human flesh wall, the result would be the same. Therefore, he could only use the infantry to forcefully tear an opening for the cavalrymen to pass through. Otherwise, the cavalrymen wouldn't be able to charge into the core area. Alexander the Great's plan was good. He knew that he was almost invincible among these human soldiers. These humans were physically weak, and the bullets in their hands couldn't penetrate Alexander the Great's armor. As long as Alexander the Great's infantry cooperated with him, they would be able to tear an opening for the cavalrymen to pass through. Although Alexander the Great's plan was good, something unexpected happened. A general who was as strong as him and was wearing the same sturdy armor stood in front of Alexander the Great. "Young Gen, have you defected to the enemy?" Alexander the Great roared angrily at Young Gen. Young Gen could only shrug his shoulders and say, "I can't help it. I'm just willing to admit defeat." Die. Alexander the Great swung his sword angrily and clashed with Young Gen. To be honest, Alexander the Great's swordsmanship couldn't be compared to Erlang immortal Young Gen's 3-point, double-edged sword. However, Young Gen didn't really want to kill Alexander the Great. After all, he still had to return to the heavenly court, and there was no need to become enemies with a powerful force like the Martyr's Palace. However, Yang Jian still perfectly completed the task of restraining Alexander the Great, and Alexander the Great couldn't continue to attack the ordinary soldiers around him. These ordinary soldiers could also wholeheartedly stop the Macedonian army's attack. The Macedonian infantry fought very bravely. They weren't afraid of the bullets that filled the sky, and they used their bodies to face them head-on. However, history and facts had proven that cold weapons would only end in failure in the face of firearms. Although many brave Macedonian infantrymen broke into the humans' position, they were quickly focused on by the bullets. In less than a second, they were riddled with holes. At this moment, the humans were in a frenzy. They didn't even care that their bullets might accidentally kill their comrades. They fired wildly at the infantries that rushed in. Under such a terrifying momentum, the Macedonian infantries had difficulty advancing. They couldn't cooperate with Alexander the Great to tear a hole in the humans' line of defense as Alexander the Great had hoped. 20 minutes left. Yang Jian blocked Alexander the Great's sword with his sword. 19 minutes left. Alexander the Great was anxious. He knew very well what Yang Jian meant. It meant that in 19 minutes, the human's super-dimensional defense system would be reactivated, and in 19 minutes, his Macedonian army would be trapped by the sword-bearers who had recovered all their sword essences. Now, Alexander the Great had to make a decision. Should he use these last 19 minutes to rush into the core area and destroy the core controller of the super-dimensional defense system, or should he use these last 19 minutes to retreat frantically and escape the coverage of the super-dimensional defense system so that his army wouldn't die in Yuzhong City? You win. I'll retreat, Alexander the Great said to Yang Jian reluctantly. You didn't lose to me. You lost to the humans. Yang Jian smiled bitterly. I used to be a human too. Alexander the Great nodded with a smile. Then, he turned around and killed a few humans around him, then fled toward the outside of the core area. Don't stop him. Let him go. The human commander also gave a timely order. The humans around Alexander the Great quickly dodged this killer, and the Great Shan the Great easily retreated to his troops. What? The feathered serpent god and her troops retreated 10 minutes ago? After returning to his troops, Alexander the Great was furious when he learned that the feathered serpent god's troops had retreated 10 minutes ago, but the Yuan Ku of the Fusang celestial system was still fighting. Forget it. If we retreat, the Fusang celestial system will retreat as well. Alexander the Great finally gave the order to retreat. Then, a sad horn sound came from the Macedonian army. Then, the soldiers who were fighting with no regard for their own lives instantly changed into a retreat formation and retreated to the outer city wall in an orderly manner. Chapter 1138. Seeing that the Martyr's Palace had retreated, even though Ling Bolai was unwilling, she knew that it was impossible to break through Yuzhong City's final defense system with just the power of the Fusang Celestial Branch. The massive attack on Yuzhong City had finally come to an end. Left with no choice, Ling Bolai could only order her Yuan Ku subordinates to retreat from Yuzhong City before the super-dimensional wall protection system reactivated. These ordinary Yuan Ku that obeyed her orders were easy to deal with, but Adam, who was still fighting Kang Na, was a different story. Ling Bolai couldn't order Adam to attack the core area before, so she couldn't order Adam to retreat from Yuzhong City now either. Once the Yuzhong people's super-dimensional wall protection system reactivated, Adam would be completely lost in Yuzhong City. Ling Bolai definitely couldn't bear the loss of Adam's death. All of Ling Bolai's combat power was on Adam. Losing Adam meant losing the new era Evangelion Machine Zero. Then she, Ling Bolai, would fall from a U-level Yuan Ku to a Tiger-level Yuan Ku. Her position in the Fusang Celestial Branch would become extremely awkward. This was a situation that Ling Bolai absolutely couldn't accept. Thus, she had to do everything she could to pull Adam out of Yuzhong City. Adam. Retreat immediately. Retreat immediately. Ling Bolai once again repeated her orders over 10 times, but Adam, who was already tangling with Kang Na, completely ignored her orders. Ling Bolai's final experiment had also been declared a failure, so the only thing she could do now was to take a risk. Thinking of this, Ling Bolai sighed slightly. She looked around and found a pure white underwear in the ruins of a building. Then, she waved the underwear high in her hand and walked toward the core area. Finally won. Sword Immortal Ling Shu couldn't help but shed tears of excitement at the sight of all of the Yuan bandits retreating. This was really too difficult. Yuzhang City had paid a bloody price to finally obtain this victory. "Milord, a Yuan coup is approaching us." Sword Immortal Ling Shu's tears had barely fallen when he heard his subordinates report. "Why are you asking me? Can't we just kill him?" Sword Immortal Ling Shu said without hesitation. "But my lord, that Yuan coup seems to be waving a white cloth in his hand. Does that mean his surrendering?" The subordinate said again. "White cloth. Surrender." Sword Immortal Ling Shu's interest was piqued. He walked over to the edge of the city wall and looked down. Sure enough, there was a young woman in a strange white dress waving the white cloth in her hand. At the same time, she raised her hands high into the air as she approached the core region. "It's Ling Bo Li." Sword Immortal Ling Shu was astonished. He recognized Yuan Ku as the pilot of the Zero Gospel machine, Ling Bolai. "Let her come here. I want to see what she wants to do." Sword Immortal Ling Shu's curiosity was piqued. Of course, he knew that Ling Bolai's true combat prowess was only at the level of a tiger rank Yuan Ku. The soldiers on the city wall would be able to kill this Yuan Ku in a single volley. He didn't suspect that Ling Bolai had any ulterior motives. Under Sword Immortal Ling Shu's command, Ling Bolai's journey was unimpeded, and she soon appeared before Sword Immortal Ling Shu. "I want you to release Asuka. Also, get that giant dragon to stop attacking and let Adam leave Yuzhang City." Ling Bolai went straight to the point. As soon as she saw Sword Immortal Ling Shu, she immediately stated her objective. Miss Ling Bolai is quite straightforward. Sword Immortal Ling Shu nodded. In reality, Adam had already broken free from control. Anyone with a discerning eye could see this. Now that Ling Bolai had taken the initiative to find him, it further proved this point. It proved that she had already lost control of Adam. Then, to Ling Bolai at this time, the only way to take Adam away was to get the humans to voluntarily retreat. Only by getting Kang Na to voluntarily withdraw from her battle with Adam would Adam gradually regain his rationality and be under Ling Bolai's control again. Only then would she be able to successfully bring Adam out. Of course, there was also the captive Asuka. Although Ling Bolai didn't have a good relationship with her, she still had to exchange Asuka. "What trump card do you have?" Sword Immortal Ling Shu clearly knew that if Ling Bolai didn't have something to rely on, she definitely wouldn't dare to come to him and ask him to release Adam. Otherwise, Sword Immortal Ling Shu would kill Ling Bolai right away. Since Ling Bolai was straightforward, Sword Immortal Ling Shu couldn't be bothered to converse with Ling Bolai. He directly asked about Ling Bolai's trump card. "Can any of you withstand the self-destruction of a flood-level Yuan Ku?" Ling Bolai coldly swept her gaze across everyone's eyes. "With a single thought from me, Adam will immediately self-destruct. Once a flood-level Yuan Ku self-destructs, the entire Yuzhang City will be razed to the ground in an instant. None of you will survive." "What? How could this be?" Hearing you say that, all the people around you showed a horrified expression. In the more than 1,000 years of battle between humans and Yuan Ku, whether it was for humans or Yuan Ku, self-destruction was the best way to perish together. Humans had experienced at least a dozen flood-level Yuan Ku and even desolate-level Yuan Ku self-destruction. As for the result of the self-destruction, everything within a radius of about 100 kilometers would be destroyed, and a deep pit with a radius of about 100 meters would be blasted out. Unless the sword-bearers present could have a personal shield with an energy level of more than 1 million, they would only be dead in the face of a flood-level Yuan Ku self-destruction. A personal shield with an energy intensity of more than 1 million was roughly equivalent to the personal shield energy intensity of a top spirit sword level swordbearer. In other words, any swordbearer below the top spirit sword level would directly die under the self-detonation of a flood-level Yuan bandit. There was absolutely no possibility of survival. Thinking of the scene of Adam self-destructing in Yuzhang City, all the humans present suddenly shuddered. They wanted nothing more than to immediately drive this god of plague out of Yuzhang City. Why should I believe that giant has the ability to self-destruct? There has never been such a record in our information. Although Sword Immortal Ling Shu was also shocked, this was a matter of great importance. If Adam could listen to Ling Bolai's order and instantly self-destruct, then it was naturally necessary to agree to Ling Bolai's request. But if Ling Bolai's self-destruction was fake, then he, Sword Immortal Ling Shu, would become a complete joke. This kind of example was not unheard of. The most recent one was 95 years ago, when the fledgling Yang Jin Jendi. At that time, it was still Yang Jin Sword Spirit. Yang Jin Sword Spirit and Cheng Yarojin of the Martyr's Palace fought in the Mai Ling mountain range. In the end, Yang Jin Sword Spirit expended a tremendous amount of effort and finally defeated Cheng Yarojin. Just as Yang Jin Sword Spirit was about to kill Cheng Yarojin suddenly rushed into a building full of people and threatened Yang Jin Sword Spirit, saying that if Yang Jin Sword Spirit dared to kill him, he would immediately self-destruct and take everyone in the building down with him. At that time, Yang Jin Sword Spirit was threatened and indeed didn't dare to kill him further. In the end, while he was hesitating, one of the final bosses of the Martyr's Palace, flood-level Yuan Ku Emperor Li Shimin, reached out a giant hand from the void and saved Cheng Yarojin. In the end, just a few days later, this face-slapping happened. This Cheng Yarojin drank a few bottles of Erguatu from who knew where, and then just happened to encounter a small team of sword-bearers. Cheng Yarojin, who had already drunk so much during the fight that he couldn't control his mouth, sarcastically recounted what had happened. It turned out that Cheng Yarojin didn't have the ability to self-destruct at all. He was only deceiving Yang Jin Sword Spirit, but he didn't expect that fool to actually believe him. In the end, half of the sword-bearers died under Cheng Yarojin's 3 axes, while the other half barely managed to escape. The surviving sword-bearers immediately blamed their hatred on the sword spirit of Jie Jin. Based on their logic, if it wasn't for the fact that Sword Emperor Ji Jin was too stupid and was deceived by Cheng Yarojin, resulting in him not killing Cheng Yarojin, their comrade wouldn't have died in Cheng Yarojin's hands today. As a result, these sword-bearers spread the news, and in the end, everyone knew about it, causing the young Yang Jin sword spirit to lose a lot of face. It was said that he couldn't raise his head for a year or two. But this wasn't entirely a bad thing. After this incident, Yang Jin Sword Spirit's personality became very calm, which laid the foundation for him to ascend to the throne in the future. After Sword Emperor Ji Jin ascended to the throne, it was reasonable to say that everyone should avoid this matter. However, Jiyu Jin Jendi took the initiative to tell others about this, hoping that they would take this as a warning and not be fooled by a few words from Yuan Ku. Otherwise, it would leave behind a scourge that would cause future sword-bearers to suffer. It was precisely because of Jiyu Jin Jendi's attitude that this matter was widely spread, and in the end, everyone knew about it. It became a fable called Cheng Yarojin Self-Destruct, and all humans took this as a warning. Now, Sword Immortal Ling Shu had to confirm that Ling Bolai was telling the truth, that this Adam really could self-destruct under her control. Otherwise, he would become the next Jiyu Jin Jendi. All your information was recorded later on. Adam has never self-destructed, so of course you don't know that Adam has the ability to self-destruct, Ling Bolai said coldly. Although what she said was a little annoying, it was the truth. Apart from the huge number of Yuan Ku, the abilities of the unique Yuan Ku had never been fully recorded. Moreover, most of the abilities of the Yuan Ku who had the ability to self-destruct were only recorded after they self-destructed. Before that, it was indeed very rare for humans to know that they had the ability to self-destruct in advance. Who can prove that Adam can self-destruct? Sword Immortal Ling Shu asked after a moment of hesitation. He knew that his question was very stupid. He had all the recorded information of the human race in his hands. There might be someone who could prove Adam's ability to self-destruct, but it could only be those Yuan Ku who were very familiar with Adam. But asking a human to ask Yuan Ku for proof, not to mention the fact that the probability of these Yuan Ku lying was as high as 99%, where would he, Sword Immortal Ling Shu, find those Yuan Ku who could prove Adam's ability? Could he, Sword Immortal Ling Shu, give these Yuan Ku a call, send them a message, or personally go to their homes to prove it? Yes. What Sword Immortal Ling Shu didn't expect was that Ling Bolai would answer this question with such certainty and calmness. Then, she told Sword Immortal Ling Shu that Ji Cheng Meili of the Free City and the mayor of the Free City could prove it. Chapter 1139. The Mayor of the Freedom City and Ji Cheng Meili. Sword Immortal Ling Shu did not expect Ling Bolai to be looking for someone from the Freedom City. At this time, the Freedom City maintained an absolutely neutral stance. In order to maintain their neutrality, the Freedom City would definitely tell the truth and not lie. Otherwise, they would be suspected of siding with one side. However, in order to maintain an absolutely neutral stance, the Freedom City had very few channels of communication with humans. The only way to communicate with humans was through the Sword Committee headquarters. However, if they really waited for the Sword Committee headquarters to contact the Freedom City, it would probably take a lot of time. Oh right, I happen to have someone from the Freedom City here. Sword Immortal Ling Shu suddenly remembered that the Freedom City's Misaka Mikoto was in Yuzhang City. There was no more suitable candidate than her, so Sword Immortal Ling Shu quickly invited Misaka Mikoto over. Miss Ling Bolai, long time no see. Unexpectedly, Misaka Mikoto seemed to be very familiar with Ling Bolai. She greeted her the moment they met. However, the tone of her voice was a little strange, as if there was something very interesting hidden in it. Miss Misaka, hello. Ling Bolai nodded cautiously. After that, Misaka Mikoto and Ling Bolai did not interact much. Sword Immortal Ling Shu told Misaka Mikoto everything about Ling Bolai. After listening to Sword Immortal Ling Shu's account, Misaka Mikoto said with certainty, "There's no need to ask the mayor or Miss Mikoto. I know about this. Adam does have the ability to self-destruct." Miss Mikoto, are you sure about this? Sword Immortal Ling Shu confirmed again with a serious expression. I'm sure. Misaka Mikoto nodded again, a reminiscing expression on her face. If it wasn't for JJDMA's quick reflexes and covering Adam's body with his right hand, I'm afraid you wouldn't be able to see me today, Sword Immortal Ling Shu. JJDMA? You mean the freelancer known as the Fantasy Killer? Sword Immortal Ling Shu recalled JJDMA's information. He was a universe rank Yuan Ku from the Freedom City. However, his ability was very special. His right hand could erase all supernatural abilities, just like the Ring of Reason in the sky. However, it was different from the Ring of Reason. The Ring of Reason covered an area. As long as it covered an area, all supernatural abilities would disappear. However, he could only do this if he used his right hand to touch the target. From the looks of it, JJDMA wasn't qualified to be a universe-level Yuan Ku. However, since he was judged to be a universe-level Yuan Ku by humans, his ability had to be special. JJDMA's ability ignored his opponent's level. The Ring of Reason's ability would be greatly weakened against a Hundam level or Emperor Sword level sword wielder, and it would be useless against a Desolate level or Peak level sword wielder. However, JJDMA's ability was different. Even against the most powerful Desolate level Yuan Ku or Emperor Sword wielder, JJDMA could erase their opponent's ability. After countless tests, there was no need to doubt it. As for Fantasy Killer JJDMA, Super Electromagnetic Gun Misaka Mikoto, Thermostatic Death God Hatsuharu, and other people from the same world, they were all extremely good friends. From Misaka Mikoto's words, it could be deduced that Adam had once fought with JJDMA and the others. At the last moment, Adam was forced to self-destruct. In the end, it was JJDMA who erased Adam's self-destruct ability in time. That was why Misaka Mikoto and the others didn't die from Adam's self-destruction. Then, as long as this woman wills it, Adam will self-destruct. Sword Immortal Ling Shu asked unwillingly. Yes. Misaka Mikoto nodded again. The current situation is pretty much what happened then. At that time, Adam also lost control. We also captured Ling Bolai, and Ling Bolai also ordered Adam to self-destruct while he was out of control. Sword Immortal Ling Shu, I'm an outsider, so I shouldn't say too much. However, this is a place where I've fought before, so I hope that Master Sword Immortal Ling Shu will believe what I say. I will never lie to you. This sword immortal Ling Shu was already 80% convinced of Ling Bolai's words. However, when he thought about the huge losses Yuzhang City had suffered in the previous battle, and when he thought about Ling Bolai's cold and disdainful expression, sword immortal Ling Shu's anger flared up again. Sword immortal Ling Shu was extremely unwilling to compromise and agree just like that. I must seek Miss Xuanyuan's opinion on this matter. After thinking for a long time, sword immortal Ling Shu finally decided to throw this difficult problem to Jiyu Shenyuan. However, Jiyu Shenyuan did not have her personal gadget with her, and she was currently in Kang Na's mouth, commanding Kang Na to fight. It was impossible for her to send someone to pass the message. Helpless, sword immortal Ling Shu could only order someone to find a huge high-pitched cannon and aim it at Kang Na's position. Using a volume of over 1,000 decibels, he transmitted the message to Jiyu Shenyuan in Kang Na's mouth. Is sword immortal Ling Shu getting more and more muddle-headed as he gets older? He's actually using this kind of method to transmit information. Jiyu Shenyuan, who was in the dragon's mouth, immediately frowned and complained after hearing the entire message through the high-pitched cannon. That's right, through this method, Jiyu Shenyuan did indeed find out about this important matter. However, this also meant that this matter was also known by all the other humans. The humans who were still immersed in the joy of victory immediately fell into a state of fear. They looked at the giant in front of them in horror, as if this giant would explode in the next second. No, this old man Ling Shu is not stupid. He's trying to completely throw away all responsibility. Jiyu Shenyuan thought for a moment, and realized that this was most likely not a momentary mistake on sword immortal Ling Shu's part, but a way for sword immortal Ling Shu to shift the blame. Because this way, all the humans would know that the final decision was made by her, Jiyu Shenyuan. Then, all the consequences of this decision would be directed at her. Sword immortal Ling Shu was at most a messenger, and he could perfectly shift the blame onto Jiyu Shenyuan. This guy, he's already starting to scheme against others as soon as the battle has ended. Jiyu Shenyuan suddenly realized that her friendly relationship with sword immortal Ling Shu had already gone from its peak to a downhill path. This was also the nature of humans. Once an external crisis had passed, they would start to think of ways to scheme against their own people. Actually, Jiyu Xuanyuan's way of thinking was still a little extreme. As far as sword immortal Ling Shu was concerned, although he also wanted to shift the blame, the fundamental reason was that he really didn't know what to do. Moreover, he couldn't think of a better way to inform Jiyu Shenyuan in such a short time, so he could only resort to this method. Kang Na. Next, you do this, like this, like this. Jiyu Shenyuan gave Kang Na some instructions on how to involve Adam, and then directly climbed out of Kang Na's mouth. She jumped onto a nearby building, and then hurriedly ran down from the building. What are you guys going to decide? Ling Bolai, who was standing on the city wall of the core area, had already become impatient. She kept urging sword immortal Ling Shu to make a decision, but sword immortal Ling Shu still refused to give Ling Bolai an answer with the reason that Jiyu Shenyuan, who could make the decision, was still on her way. When there were less than 3 minutes left before the super-dimensional wall protection system, Jiyu Shenyuan finally arrived on the city wall. She also saw Ling Bolai, who was extremely anxious, but still maintained a cold expression. Now give me an answer. Seeing that Jiyu Shenyuan had finally appeared, Ling Bolai immediately asked impatiently. Yes. Actually, I already thought of an answer on the way here. Jiyu Shenyuan nodded her head, and then walked to Ling Bolai's side, and suddenly pressed her face against Ling Bolai's face. Using a distance that only lovers could have, she stared into Ling Bolai's eyes, and said in a light voice, "Stretch out your hand." What do you want to do? Ling Bolai immediately asked. Of course I want to capture you. Jiyu Shenyuan waved the sealing talisman in her hand. This was a sealing talisman that was specially used to control Yuan Ku. Originally, a universe-level Yuan Ku needed extremely specialized equipment to be able to be sealed. Just like how Jiyu Shenyuan had previously used a set of equipment left behind from a long time ago to seal Kang Na's power. However, the current Ling Bolai was actually only a tiger-level Yuan Ku. In this way, a normal talisman could very easily seal Ling Bolai. This is your answer. Ling Bolai abruptly took a few steps back. She clenched her fists tightly, and looked at Adam, who was fighting on the other side. If that's the case, I'll have no choice but to die with you. Miss Shenyuan, don't. Be careful. Sword Immortal Ling Shu had never thought that Jiyu Shenyuan would directly want to capture Ling Bolai as soon as she arrived. She did not care about the safety of Yuzhang City at all. He was instantly scared out of his wits. He was afraid that Ling Bolai would be forced by Jiyu Shenyuan to the point where she had no choice but to order Adam to self-destruct. Miss Shenyuan, please believe me. Ling Bolai is not lying. She's telling the truth. Misaka Mikoto also hurriedly said. Master Ling Shu, since you've put in so much effort to give me the right to make the decision, please believe me. Jiyu Shenyuan did not give Sword Immortal Ling Shu and Misaka Mikoto a chance to continue speaking. She took a step forward, and the sealing talisman in her hand grabbed Ling Bolai's hands. What kind of person was Jiyu Shenyuan? Even if she did not have a sword in her hand, Ling Bolai, who relied on external objects to fight, would not be able to resist her. Therefore, even though Ling Bolai struggled a few times, she was instantly controlled by Jiyu Shenyuan. As expected, the talisman stuck to Ling Bolai's hands. It's over. Will Yuzhang City be destroyed? At this moment, Sword Immortal Ling Shu rolled his eyes. He was prepared to welcome the destruction of Yuzhang City. Of course, nothing happened in the end. Yuzhang City was still fine, and Adam was still fine. Everything was fine. Only Ling Bolai's expression was ashen. At this moment, she had been successfully controlled by the sealing talisman. She had become a complete captive. Why? Why are you so confident that you can capture me? Ling Bolai asked unwillingly. Is there even a need to think about it? Since Dang Ma's fantasy assassin could seal Adam's self-destructibility, then can the Ring of Perfection in the sky also seal Adam's self-destructibility? As soon as Jiyu Shenyuan finished speaking, she knocked Ling Bolai's head with the hilt of her sword. The unfortunate girl immediately fainted, completely cutting off all possibilities of Ling Bolai's escape. Right at this moment, a huge tremor suddenly came from the ground. A faintly discernible membrane began to appear in the sky and shroud Yuzhang City. Yuzhang City's super-dimensional protection system had finally been restored. Chapter 1140. It's over. Sword Immortal Ling Shu heaved a long sigh of relief as he looked at the super-dimensional wall that had reappeared in the sky and sensed the abundant sword essence that had reappeared in his body. Don't be too happy, didn't you leave a tail behind? Jiyu Shenyuan said lightly as she looked at Adam, who was still entangled with Kang Na. My God! How could I forget about this trouble? Sword Immortal Ling Shu held his chin weakly. Even though the super-dimensional wall had been restored and the sword essence in their bodies had returned to normal under the protection of the super-dimensional wall system, Adam was still Adam, still a flood-level Yuan Ku. Among the sword-bearers present, the highest rank was only Sword Immortal Ling Shu. To destroy a flood-level Yuan Ku like Adam, it was still not enough. Unless Sword Immortal Ling Shu was willing to sacrifice a large number of low-rank sword-bearers and sword maidens as cannon fodder, he might have a chance of killing this flood-level Yuan Ku. Miss Shenyuan, do you have any way to deal with this Adam? Sword Immortal Ling Shu shamelessly threw the question to Jiyu Shenyuan. He was already used to this method of solving problems. Of course. Jiyu Shenyuan nodded her head. We have regained our strength, and Kang Na has actually also regained her strength. As long as Kang Na explodes out with all of her lightning powers, coupled with your cooperation from the side, dealing with this Adam would naturally not be a problem. That's good, I'll. Sword Immortal Ling Shu immediately realized that something was wrong. Kang Na was a lightning dragon. If this lightning dragon unleashed her full power, the entire city would probably become a sea of fire. This battlefield was not outside the city, but in the ordinary district of Yuzhang City. If the entire ordinary district was burned to ruins, it would be very difficult to rebuild the entire ordinary district to its original state even after 50 years. No, absolutely not. If the ordinary district is destroyed, then more than half of the 40 million people underground will be homeless. This is too terrifying. Sword Immortal Ling Shu shook his head and rejected Jiyu Xuanyuan's suggestion. In fact, Jiyu Xuanyuan's suggestion was just a joke. Of course, she could see the drawbacks of this suggestion. He also did not want the city that he had lived in for 18 years to be completely destroyed because of a war. After all, this ordinary district contained a lot of his memories that he would never be able to forget in this lifetime. Young Mistress Shen Yuan, please think of another way. This idea really won't work. Sword Immortal Ling Shu pleaded again. Sword Immortal Ling Shu, there's something that I think you must be clear about. Jiyu Xuanyuan's tone suddenly changed, and she suddenly adopted an attitude that indicated that she didn't want to interfere anymore. You are the chairman of Yuzhang City's Sword Committee. You should be the one to solve these problems. I can't do too much for you. After all, when the battle is over, I will be preparing to escape. This. Sword Immortal Ling Shu felt a wave of awkwardness wash over him when he heard Jiyu Shenyuan say that she was going to flee for her life later. Of course he knew why Jiyu Shenyuan wanted to flee for her life. Young Mistress Shenyuan, you are a great hero of Yuzhang City, and also a great benefactor of Yuzhang City. Please stay in Yuzhang City with peace of mind. I, Sword Immortal Ling Shu, will do my best to defend you. Even if I have to bet the entire Yuzhang City, I will definitely stop those bastards from the Sword Committee headquarters and ensure your safety and freedom, Sword Immortal Ling Shu said solemnly. Thank you. Jiyu Shenyuan looked at Sword Immortal Ling Shu in surprise. She didn't think that Sword Immortal Ling Shu would be so responsible. Sword Immortal Ling Shu's words meant that he would completely oppose the Sword Committee headquarters. When that happened, the pressure that Sword Immortal Ling Shu would have to bear would probably be even higher than the heavens. There's no need to do this. Jiyu Shenyuan shook her head. In the future, Yuzhang City will undergo a large-scale reconstruction, and this will require the help of the Sword Committee headquarters. I can't delay the lives of others in Yuzhang City just because of me. I will handle this matter myself. Sword Immortal Ling Shu, you can represent Yuzhang City and remain silent. Then how do you plan to handle this? Sword Immortal Ling Shu paused. The people from the Sword Committee headquarters will definitely not let you off. It's not a big deal. Jiyu Shenyuan looked in the direction of Yangjing City with disdain. When I rule over the world, everything will melt away. Sword Immortal Ling Shu was dazed for a moment. Only now did he realize the difference between him and Jiyu Shenyuan. She was someone who was determined to stand at the top of the world. How could she care about a mere wanted poster? Then I, Sword Immortal Ling Shu, wish Miss Shenyuan good luck in ascending to the throne as soon as possible. Sword Immortal Ling Shu bowed to Jiyu Shenyuan. All right. Master Ling Shu, you should think about how to deal with this Adam. Jiyu Shenyuan accepted Sword Immortal Ling Shu's bow with a clear conscience. Then, she awkwardly changed the topic. I have to think of a way to lure him out of the normal area. Sword Immortal Ling Shu wasn't an idiot. It was just that Jiyu Shenyuan had blocked all of his decisions previously, so Sword Immortal Ling Shu was too lazy to use his brain. Now that Jiyu Shenyuan had washed her hands of this matter, Sword Immortal Ling Shu's intelligence had returned. Sword Immortal Ling Shu was right. As long as they left the normal area, they would be protected by the super-dimensional barrier system. Then, no matter how intense the battle was, it wouldn't be able to harm Yuzhang City in the slightest. This was indeed the best solution. But this is also a troublesome part. The super-dimensional barrier system has already been activated. The Yuan Ku outside can't come in, and the Yuan Ku inside can't come out either. Unless we close the dimensional barrier system again, Adam won't be able to leave even if he wants to. Sword Immortal Ling Shu suggested to himself. However, he quickly rejected this idea. Sword Immortal Ling Shu didn't want to experience the intense battles and extremely dangerous situations that had taken place again. Thus, the idea of opening the super-dimensional barrier system to let Adam out was naturally abandoned by Sword Immortal Ling Shu. That's right, there's also the quantum teleportation formation. Let me see if there are any large quantum teleportation arrays in the normal area that can connect with the quantum teleportation arrays outside Yuzhang City. Sword Immortal Ling Shu immediately had a new idea. He immediately closed his eyes and flipped through his personal terminal. After a while, a helpless expression appeared on his face. This is troublesome. There were originally several quantum teleportation arrays outside the city. But in order to prevent Yuan Ku from attacking the city through the quantum teleportation arrays outside the city like he did 4 years ago, all of these quantum teleportation arrays have been removed. Now, only the quantum teleportation array at the transit station can still be used. Transit station? Jiyu Shenyuan, who had been listening to Sword Immortal Ling Shu talk to himself, finally understood why Sword Immortal Ling Shu would say that this was troublesome. If they used the quantum teleportation array to send Adam back to the transit station, then this transit station would definitely be completely destroyed by the following battle. When that time came, humans would have to expend a great deal of effort to find a new location to build a new transit station. The transit station wasn't an ordinary place. It was a permanent fortification that Yuzhong City had carefully chosen. It was needless to say how much manpower and material resources were needed to build such a transit station. More importantly, because the location was outside the city, there was bound to be a huge risk when building the transit station. And once the location of the transit station was exposed and discovered by Yuan Ku, then when Yuzhong City needed to activate the transit station, it was likely that Yuan Ku would have already completely surrounded the transit station. All in all, the manpower, material resources, and energy required would not be much easier than rebuilding a normal area. There must be another way. Sword Immortal Ling Shu once again eliminated the idea of using the quantum teleportation array. But apart from shutting down the super-dimensional barrier system and using 2 teleportation arrays, is there any other way to send this guy out? Sword Immortal Ling Shu fell into deep thought. That's right. Miss Shen Yuan, you. Sword Immortal Ling Shu suddenly remembered that after Jiyu Shen Yuan subdued Kang Na this morning, she seemed to have taken Kang Na to the core area for a meal. And Jiyu Shen Yuan didn't seem to have used any other methods from beginning to end. She directly passed through the dimensional barrier system of the core area and directly brought Kang Na in. Could it be that in Jiyu Shen Yuan's hands, Sword Immortal Ling Shu immediately raised his head to ask Jiyu Shen Yuan, but found that Jiyu Shen Yuan's figure had already disappeared from his side. Looking into the distance, he was surprised to find that Jiyu Shen Yuan was in the air, flying back in Kang Na's direction. This Miss Jiyu Shen Yuan, it seems like she already has a plan. She's been toying with me from beginning to end. Sword Immortal Ling Shu shook his head with a wry smile. On the other side, Jiyu Shen Yuan had already flown back to Kang Na's body. But this time, Jiyu Shen Yuan didn't need to hide in Kang Na's mouth. Instead, she stood on Kang Na's head majestically like Ling Ling, staring fiercely at the Hong-grade Yuan Ku Adam before her. What is Miss Shen Yuan planning to do? Everyone present, including those ordinary people who were watching the live broadcast on TV, had their attention firmly fixed on Jiyu Shen Yuan. They were secretly guessing what Jiyu Shen Yuan planned to do next. I understand now. Miss Shen Yuan must be planning to instruct Kang Na to lure this Adam to the outer city wall of the normal area, Sword Immortal Ling Shu guessed in his mind. And he was very sure of his guess. However, what happened next made everyone's jaws drop. Kang Na, transform. Jiyu Shen Yuan, who was standing on Kang Na's head, suddenly shouted. This scene looked just like those shameless, Chunibya magical girls. Oh. Kang Na nodded adorably. Then, the 2 dragon horns on her head instantly retracted back into her head. Kang Na's body was enveloped by a beam of magical light. After a dazzling burst of light, she transformed back into the cute little lowly Kang Na-chan from before. But what was extremely incongruous was that Jiyu Shen Yuan was riding on Kang Na's neck. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.